All right, this is I'll call the meeting to order. It's a committee meeting, not a committee meeting, but it's a working meeting to work on committees. And it's May 18th, 2022. And we're going over policies, and hopefully we'll get a few through tonight. And I'll turn the meeting over to our chair of our Governance Committee, which would be Councillor McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just for the reference for the recording, in case some people aren't familiar with some committee meetings, they can be different. It's a fair amount of leniency is given to the chair and how to run it. I run my committees as a roundtable. It's a little less formal than a typical committee would be, but I find it's better for interactions and feedback than putting your hand up to back to forth, saying, it just takes a lot more time and there's more open discussion, that's why. So before we get started though, there's a couple minor things, I guess. So I'd like to start with committee policy. We did have some updates, and great updates actually, from Councillor Pack at the last meeting. I think I have everything in here. There was one thing that I wanted to change, I wanted to make though, based on that. So in section 1A, where we put in, she had suggested the definition basically of what less formal means. This technically, it's in red here, this technically applies to all committees. So what I was hoping to do was pull it out of the committee policy and actually put it in the committee section of the procedural bylaw, because there's other descriptions about committees in there, and I think it would be more fitting to put it in there, because since it does really apply to all of these committees anyway, wouldn't it make more sense to put it in the procedural area? What's the thoughts?
I think so. That way it doesn't have to go in every committee structure itself.
Yeah, it removes redundancy, right?
Yeah, it covers it all under the one shot.
Everybody okay with that?
Can you say it one more time? So you'd like to take 1A out of here?
No, not the whole thing, just in the red that I added. Remember you want that type of description of why it's less formal, or what constitutes that? Like there's the differences in minutes and things like that, and how committees can be, like for example, this is a round table. So the structures and stuff. So that really shouldn't, it would either be all four times for every one of the committees, which is redundant, or just rip it out and put it once in the procedural bylaw in the committee section. Because we have some section 9. We'll get to that later tonight. There's a couple minor things there.
I just didn't hear the red ink.
Okay.
But there are a couple of grammatical things in there. Do you worry about that now?
Oh yes, for sure. Yeah, if you think something, I didn't run this through like Grammarly or anything to fix that stuff. And normally Microsoft Word is kind of smart enough to pick up on it, and sometimes I disagree with its suggestions. But if you think there's something to change,
That's what we're here for.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we're here.
Okay. So just in this one, or because I don't have very many, but I have some others.
Well, let's start with the committee policy first, and if
Alrighty.
we can get through that, then we'll get into the procedural bylaw, because it's a lot longer.
So 1A in the committee policy, committee of the whole, functions discussion-oriented meeting. Whereas if you read 1B, functions as an.
Yeah, that's definitely a miss. That just should have been functions as a discussion.
Yes, okay. And then in the red, if you're going to keep it, this wording and move it, it reads now, as a committee meeting is less formal that a full committee.
That is less formal than.
Okay.
Yeah, good catch.
So do you want me to say that there aren't too many more?
No, go ahead. We can come back to the red. For this page first, let's. Is there any other changes in this page?
No.
Because the red, we put updated the mandated committee, updated to say special ad hoc or select committees. I wanted to put ad hoc specifically in there because it's referenced in Robert's Rules of Order and Robert's new Rules of Order. So I'm just trying to keep it consistent across the namings.
So the next one I picked out was 4B.
Okay, before we get to page 3 with number 4 on them, is everyone okay with the changes in red on page 2?
I added something. I don't know if you noticed that.
I didn't, no.
So under special and select committees, it may include members of the public. Any person interested in joining these committees must fill out the application form, Schedule A to this policy, and submit to the clerk for consideration. That's not true for 3A.
Oh, special and select committees may include members of the public. Any person interested in joining must. That's not correct?
Well, for example, so I'm gonna use Spook Fest or Easter Extravaganza. The chair just took it and ran with it,
Yeah,
right? So they would get their committee members and go with it. We had nothing to do with it. So we have to actually redefine what the requirement is for a public committee member. Like, it's not like, for those special committees, they're not coming to us for requesting the committee members. It's on their own, like, it's not,
okay, but if we're gonna follow the format that we don't have operational committees technically, and it has to still be a committee of council, then council would have to approve the memberships. So the memberships really should be coming to council, if that's the format we're gonna follow, right?
unless we redefine.
We could redefine it.
Unless we redefine what and who decides.
And how does that
On a
impact the
committee.
non-disclosure agreement, which we don't use? Are we gonna start using it, or are we just whatever?
Because it's like, if you need, like, if you have a committee of, I don't know, I just, for a committee you're using to plan an event, it's really difficult to get members as it is.
Yeah.
And I find if you're going through all these steps and hoops and they have to fill out applications, they just want to come and do the event,
Right.
right? They want to volunteer for that one event. So having them go through all these hoops to actually apply to be, it just, I don't know, I just maybe think it needs to be redefined.
We should make it as easy as possible.
Okay, so we just take out, just say special and select committees may include members of the public?
Okay.
What if we have two different categories of committee members?
That's what I'm thinking. If you have people who are going to organize that committee and set it up, that's different than if you have somebody coming for that one evening to be a ghost in the trail.
Well, no, for example, like for Easter Extravaganza, you had how many?
Oh, 12?
12. And I just don't think something like that, you're just planning an event, I don't think you need to go through all the
The hoops.
hoops.
I agree with that, that the people are
Like-
just coming for that one day.
No, it's not a day, it's like several, like you would have had several meetings over like 3 or 4 weeks,
Well,
right? It's an actual committee.
I have a problem with it, people coming for longer and planning, whatever. If it's someone who's coming to help you out, pass out candy for a day, then I agree that, But if it's someone who's going to be making the commitment to organize things, then I think they need to apply.
Okay, Councillor Sutton has a comment?
Yeah, sorry, and I just want to, I completely agree with Clark, good job. When we did, well, I kind of joined the bandwagon when it came to the Easter Extravaganza, but when we did Spook Fest, the whole theory about having an NDA is that we don't disclose public information to public things. There's really nothing in this thing that is what we're going to hear about Citizen A about the street. So when we had the Transportation Committee or Communication Committee, there was things that should have been kept private because we had to talk about issues that certain people had. There you want an NDA, right? But that's just that they don't disclose information about the public. It's not about what we do. It's not protecting us. So when we have these things like Spook Fest, like Easter Extravaganza, tell the world it doesn't matter. It's not. We're not talking about a person's property that had to have a dumpster or whatever it was that we had to do.
Right.
So there is, to Councillor Dr. Peck's point, there is two different types. So if it was communication committee, maybe there is some things you have to talk about. How do we phrase bus stops, or how do we phrase an airplane accident? How are we going to do this stuff? Maybe that has to be protected, but not the regular committee meetings,
Of like events.
not events.
And, sorry, public meetings, though, now that they're all public meetings, they're all audio recorded, so where's the confidentiality
Yeah, that's my thought too.
agreement?
Why would it matter?
Why do we need that? We don't have a non-disclosure agreement, what we have is a confidentiality one was what we had.
Yeah, it's
But
technically the
nobody
same.
really, that I know of, like they might have signed it, but they're public meetings.
Right.
So anybody can show up, anybody can hear what's being said. So do we actually need all of that?
It's not listed anywhere in like the Local Governance Act.
No.
It's technically not even in Robert's Rules of Order. It's up to the chairs and council to decide what to do. I just don't think that we need, maybe back then at some point in the past,
I
there may have
think
been a reason for
when
it.
councillors are discussing certain things, like in closed session, they should actually obviously sign a non-disclosure,
Well, it's already covered in a closed session in our procedural bylaw, right?
Great. That's the only time we'd ever want to have a confidentiality agreement. Because the rest of the stuff, like Councillor Heislip said, is public anyway, so
Yeah.
there's really nothing.
Why does it
confidential.
matter? We really should probably just, we've never really used it. We used them a long, long time ago, I remember, like a couple of the committees, but things have changed like that since, what's the point?
But I do think certain committees, like age friendly, you might want to have them apply. But
But
that
if
to me is a little
if they're
different.
public,
Yeah, but I don't know, maybe it's not.
Okay,
So-
Councillor Heisler.
My thought on that is, there are certain committees that you might want to have people that have a bit more expertise.
Right.
Than the general public.
Right.
Like, it's different for somebody just working at the Easter extravaganza and, you know, making sure the water things are filled and the juice boxes are filled. But for some, even on recreation, maybe you want to have a student, maybe you
Right.
want to have
Rural plan.
rural,
Yeah.
like maybe you need
Exactly.
people with expertise.
Yeah.
So in that case, I would suggest there are certain committees that you would want people to apply.
Right,
So you want the best fit.
right.
And I know there's other municipalities out there that actually require people to fill out forms. They might not get to sit on the committee, but it's just a requirement
So
that
what,
council chooses.
so what if we changed that to any person interested in joining these committees may be required to fill out an application form?
That actually works.
That works great, yeah.
Yeah.
That takes both
Covers
situations
it
into
all.
account, yeah.
Okay.
Hang on a second, can you,
Instead of must fill out the application, may be required to fill out an application form.
Then the question becomes,
Yeah,
who makes that
the
decision?
chair of the committee, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, no, council should make that decision, because the chair of the committee may not necessarily agree with what the majority of council, he may not see the importance of, you know, having applications and.
Well, if an ad hoc committee is struck, wouldn't it be made at that time to decide, okay, we're making the committee for this committee may require a non-disclosure agreement?
Not, no, application.
Or an application.
For
sorry.
application. Councillor Heisler.
What if we put it in the mandate of each committee? Some committees that are mandated will be, say, you must have,
That's a better idea.
Right.
you know, you must
You may-
apply. Other ones, there will not be that.
Right.
Okay.
So we don't have any right now that are in here, I think, that would require it, right? So,
I think age-friendly should.
Age-friendly?
Should, yeah.
in rural planning.
Rural plan
Rural
should.
plan Definitely has to.
Are we gonna go, we're not
We're
going
not-
with the environment?
Well, I was going page by page, so can we talk
Okay,
about that, I guess,
sorry.
then we'll
Yeah.
get there?
Yes,
So
sorry.
as far as this, for the public committee members one, so I like the wording of that, can you read it back to me again? So, any person interested in joining these committees
May
may,
be required to fill out
An application form.
the application form.
And that red can all just be crossed out.
yeah. Okay, I like that, yeah.
You could even put in there, this will be defined in the committee mandate, so that when people look at the mandate,
Yes.
they'll know.
Yeah, but we can add that, yeah.
Right.
This will be defined, that way it just, it flows and continues into the rest of the policy, yeah.
Right.
This shall be defined in committee mandates. Defined in specific committee mandates,
Yeah.
how about that?
So then in B, are we taking out the non-disclosure agreement?
Yes,
Yes.
Sorry, where?
the 3B, taking that out.
Oh, no.
No, you don't take out the whole thing. I would think just take
No,
out
just the
subject.
taking of subject,
Yeah.
the red.
Yeah,
Taking the
just
red.
the
Yeah.
red.
No, but some of them will have a non-disclosure agreement.
Good.
We just decided that some committee in their mandate will have one.
No,
No, we
they have to
decided-
they have to apply.
Apply.
Oh, they have to apply.
They have to do an application,
Yeah, an
not
application.
sign non-disclosure.
On those committees that have to apply, I would think that you might still want to.
Can't, it's recorded,
They're all public.
it's all public meetings.
It's recorded and
They're all
open,
public.
so there's nothing to worry about disclosing,
Yeah.
because everybody already knows.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is there any, the other changes there in page 2, any other questions about it? Okay, page 3 is the Finance, Infrastructure and Parks Committee. There was no changes in finance that I noted last time. B for Infrastructure and Parks Committee had a couple changes.
And you, that old RSC 11 is still.
Is it still
sitting
there? I changed it at one spot,
You
I
did?
thought.
4A, under B.
Under B, yeah.
4A. Ah! Another one,
Yeah,
okay.
BA
I
work with
got it, I got it
RC11.
somewhere else.
That's something you can just run.
Yeah.
Just check through and it'll change them all.
It is somewhere else.
Yeah, well, yeah, if we can find it, let me know. Yeah, see, I put it in
Seven.
E. Okay.
7A has it in it. The first
Okay, we're not
paragraph.
quite there yet. Is there any other
Okay.
changes for page 3 then?
What F, can you clarify?
Determine the needs and priorities for background studies and research. That's what was given to me, I wrote down in the meeting last time.
That was taken from, I don't know. That was taken from another policy.
Oh. Okay.
So if we don't need it, we just take it off.
You can take it off if you want.
Well, no, I'm just thinking, like, if background studies and research, I mean,
So this-
that's going to come out,
Would that be like searching for land?
I don't know.
Sounds very much.
I don't, it
It's-
just doesn't make any
Application
sense, actually, to me, so
I know.
I was like.
Well,
take
it's,
that.
it's broad enough, I think that we should hopefully be able to cover some bases if something would come up, rather than having to make another change.
Yeah, like if you wanna study, you know, what equipment you might want to park.
Yeah, like the idea is oh my God, I'm back to Boston. The idea is to cover, I think, as broadly as possible some things.
Yeah. If there happens to be a study needed or some research needed, then they can define them from the committee can define them and put it to council, right, basically. You might never need them, but it's there if you need them.
Right.
Well, it's a committee of the whole anyway, right?
Right,
Yeah.
So that's why I think we went with determine the needs, because as council, we would determine if there was a need for a study.
True.
Or,
Like the water study, for
or
example.
research being done,
Yeah.
yeah,
The water, maybe the
So
water
that
study?
makes sense.
yeah.
okay. Can I ask something else though?
Yeah, sure.
So under B, Infrastructure and Parks Management Committee, you have, this committee is not to be confused with the Planning Review and Adjustment Committee?
Correct.
How would it be confused with that?
That's been in that policy for whatever that was previously
No,
called.
but that
it
was
Facilities Committee.
That was when we had, remember?
Planning
A
committee.
brief time, we had a planning committee way back in 2014.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, right.
Yes,
So
so that committee.
this
needs
needs to
be
come
taken
out.
That should come out.
Yeah, that's out, yeah.
Yeah, because they're not talking about the RS-11 track, you're talking about whatever this was.
Yeah.
So that whole set
That
last
whole
sentence.
sentence.
sentence,
That whole
that's-
sentence.
that's just legacy stuff
Yeah.
that was missed.
Yeah. Yeah, because we made a mistake on that.
Yeah.
We put that, we put that in the beginning, that was for towns. not for us.
Yet.
Yeah, we'll put it back in next time.
Anything else to page 3? Okay, page 4, I only had a couple minor changes to it. but,
So I think 5 was gonna be, wasn't it gonna be mandated legislative committee, or?
No,
was
we
it-
just said mandated committee is
Committee?
what the, has written down last
Yeah,
time.
I think we said that, there was one other municipality said mandated committee
Led-
by statute.
By statute or something, but yeah, okay,
Doesn't,
doesn't really matter,
That statute becomes redundant if it's mandated.
Yeah.
right.
The other change there was in age-friendly, keep the consistency, Councillor Peck noted promote. Is there any other typos and stuff? I jumped through page 3 quickly. Was there any other, like grammar things on?
For me, all the councils should be small,
All the
Cs.
councils should be small?
yeah.
Is that something like?
Unless you're saying rural community of Hanwell,
Yeah.
or sorry, unless you're saying Hanwell Council, then
Right.
it would be capitalized.
So I guess here's the difference in terms, because council, when you're referring to council as like a one, as an entity, it's proper noun, right? So council does this, proper noun is supposed to be capitalized.
That's funny, it's not, I did research and it's not what I came up with, but if we can go with it, as long as it's consistent all the way through, that's
Yeah.
all I care
that's
about.
true.
Like council members not capitalized.
No, council member would not be, because it's not, it's
But if
just
you're saying
something-
the
If I'm saying
council-
councillor,
You're saying
yes.
The council is a proper noun.
If I'm saying
Yours is
councillor, if I'm saying
submitted to
councillor
council.
Hyslop, then it's capitalized.
Yeah.
If I'm saying the councillor,
No, it's not.
okay.
But
Like I said, I don't care as long as it's the same all the way through.
in C, where it says submitted to council as part of the budget cycle, the count, the C, I think.
That should be a lowercase c, because
Oh,
you're
see, I was
not
thinking-
not
no.
referring to council
No, I was
as an
thinking-
entity.
Yes, you are, I think you are, and therefore, to me, that one should stay the way it is, to council.
Which C is this?
C and 5,
5A.
5A, C.
5A,
I think
C.
it's right the way it is.
Submitted, oh, yes, you're right,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, council's
Submitted
good
to
there.
council as an entity, yes.
Okay,
Can I ask a question? So, under 5A, the Emergency Measures Organization Committee, I just wonder if it should be noted in there that counselors are not able to sit on this committee, because that's what we've always been told, right?
That's right.
Yeah, it's in, I thought it was in the Emergency Measures Act, actually it calls it out
I
specifically.
think it does.
Yeah, I wasn't exactly sure, but I think it should be listed there so people know.
I'll look into that tonight and see if it spells it out specifically in the act. If it does, I'll just reference that here.
Yeah, because I think people need to know.
Yeah, but the reason too being was if councillors were on the committee and something was going on, they couldn't be in both places at once.
Yeah,
They
that's
were
right.
needed somewhere else.
And that's why it's,
That's why it's
it's
mandated.
definitely gotta be listed somewhere. I'll try to find it tonight. Okay, now something here.
Can I add something else? Sorry.
Yeah, just let me have a second to catch up on the slow writer. Even my chicken scratches even, it's still slow. Yes, okay, next.
Okay, so under age-friendly, under
Yes.
the mandate,
Yep.
it does not mention age-friendly certification. And that was the reason that was committee was set up, and we still don't have that. So is that something that you want?
That is the purpose of the age-friendly committee,
Okay,
is
well-
to get the designation.
So where would it be, in the preamble to it, or it says in the list for the mandate? So like section H.
I'd say it'd be item A and move the other
Yes.
ones
I'm
all
not
down.
sure that designation is gonna stay. I'm on the Advanced Care Planning Committee for Horizon Health,
Mhm.
and that's being discussed as something that's passed now. So many communities were involved and they're moving on to some different initiatives. So would it be a good idea to just
Wait it out,
wait it
Well,
out?
and hopefully it won't take us 2 years to re-update and revisit it, like we did the first one.
So
But, yeah.
didn't you just get information like a couple of months ago that it had changed, but the age-friendly certification was still ongoing?
Yeah, but this is probably newer.
Yeah, that may be
Well, that's
old
Phyllis
information.
Mockler,
We
and
had a-
she is on this Advanced Care Planning Committee also.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah,
We had some of our citizens meeting with Minister Shepherd today about this specific.
so it sounds like
Trying
that's,
to do something different.
That's right.
yeah, so that's
Okay.
probably more updated information than what
Okay.
Councilor Fox had.
So we don't need it?
So let's just wait on it
Okay.
until we find out what the new designation or what they're planning to do with it would be, and then we can update it again. It's just a policy, so we can update it and we can just add it. Anything else for that page? More typos, grammar, other changes? Okay, next, page 5, I think. We pulled out Communications Committee, that's on their own to deal with. Environmental Stewardship Committee, any changes for that? And then we ripped out, just trying, looking to see if I have RSC 11 listed anywhere else here.
It's
When
the
we
next page.
ripped out the Recreation Committee, which goes to page 6, I think. Now we're down to the rural planning.
7A, first paragraph.
No, technically it won't be 7 anymore because we don't have operational, so it'll be more like a 6C, I think, after it all gets renumbered.
But you've got second sentence of the end, Regional Service Commission 11 there.
Ah, okay, yeah, and it's probably missed it because it's spelled out rather than,
And it's in A too. A.
okay, yeah. C, regional, CRSC. CRS, okay.
Now, this is gonna be a very short-lived committee, like this is really gonna just be an ad hoc committee, basically.
The Rural Plan Committee?
Yeah, it's only just gonna be long enough to get our new rural plan done.
Yes, it's listed under the Special Ad Hoc Committees section,
Yeah,
right, section 6.
yeah, 'cause I mean,
Though we don't have we can't define when it's gonna meet. Should we say meet as determined by Capital Regional Service Commission?
I mean, once we start having meetings, then we'll have a schedule, but
Yeah.
right now it kinda depends on them. you still have that same line and not get confused with this planning review and adjustment committee. It's a statutory committee, so we don't. need
Right, so take that
anymore.
off there.
Take that out, yeah.
Take that out.
I think actually though, we got this, didn't we get this mandate from?
The
CSR?
yes, so yeah, the Rural Plan Review Committee came directly from CRSC.
So I think they're gonna want that in there.
That was there, they actually wrote that blurb.
Yeah.
Did they?
Yes,
Yeah.
they did, so.
Okay, I thought they were still referring to the, all right, we'll leave it in then, if you think. If that's what they put. then-
That's what they put, yeah.
Okay, yeah, then they must have reason for,
And you had the rural plan review committee will meet, question mark, question mark? Would
Yeah,
be
we're changing
as-
that to as determined
as-
by Capital Regional Service
Okay,
Commission.
great.
Which I'm gonna put in the definitions and then just say CSRC everywhere rather than spelling it out.
Right.
Good job, Darren.
Cool. Did I miss anything else?
So, Darren, you have governance committee as a standing committee.
Correct.
So should it not be a committee of the whole? Because that is basically what council does, is set bylaws and
Right, but the
policy.
committee, that the committee makes recommendations to council as a whole, and then if the council disagrees, it goes back to committee. If we have to meet every time like this, I'm gonna be frank, we'll never get anything done.
I think it's better to have the committee and then report to council, just like we're doing now, and have a working session to go through it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I disagree, but that's fine.
Will you welcome any counselor that wants to?
Yeah. If you wanna come to sit in the meetings, it's fine.
So then my other question is, you also have, it's gonna be composed of council and staff.
Correct.
Is the reasoning being that staff should be doing the research on the bylaws?
They do help out with research
Prior
on things.
to?
Yep, they
Okay.
always have in the past.
Okay, so are staff gonna be sitting on other standing committees?
I think we only have the one standing committee right now, don't we? Yeah.
The others are committees of the whole.
All committees of the whole?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not quite sure how I feel about that, but anyway.
Yeah, Councillor Sutton?
To that point, and I once asked, and thanks to the Vice Chair, Councillor Fox, brought my recommendations for committee policy to here, and the Governance Committee rejected it. So that really doesn't seem democratic when it comes to Councillor Heislop's point. The theory is, if just two people are running the Governance Committee, and they're the only ones who can lock and unlock doors to stuff that people recommend, it does seem a little short-sighted.
No, but it'll go to these working committees like we have now, the working group.
Right,
And
but-
a councillor can bring something up.
I
to a
did, I
working
brought
group.
a suggestion, and Councillor Fox, to his credit, we tried actually, but it was stopped by, at the time, it was the CAO, then the clerk, and it was just stopped, it never got anywhere further than that, because 3 people said no, even though my voice at this point should have been equal to everybody else. This was with the Transportation Committee back in the day, if you're trying to remember which one it was. And it was stopped, and I just, all right, who cares, it was fine, but how do we stop, keep the gates open so that
Yeah,
if
but
we have something we
I
want to
think the
add?
councillor should be able to bring something to this group.
Right,
That's
and then it's-
reviewing
I
committee.
think even if you fellows disagree with it, I think it has to go through the process and then come here, and then council as a whole can say, yeah, this is, and then in that case, I have no issue. But it still have to go through the process where, even if it's, I wanna have Barbie Day on Thursdays,
Yeah.
and this is what it is, it has to come through and it has to be done. If that's the case, then I have no issues with not having this committee as a whole, but it has to go through the process.
And one way of doing that possibly, a suggestion would be, if we had like every 2 months or something like that, we'd have a working session. So the committee can therefore still work on, as it does on its own, continuing with research, come up with new stuff. And then in the working session, we would come up with, bring to council, rather, before going to a council meeting, just a working session, what we have so far. And get feedback on, we going in the right direction? You want us to change direction?
Shay, that squares that away actually for me.
On everything that's going.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
never.
I mean, what we're working on and things we want to add, and the room could say, yeah, the poll's not good, don't waste your time.
Yeah, we're gonna reading in the room and say, why are you working on that? That's not needed right now or something.
But
That seems fair.
can't everyone, like, couldn't everyone, like, if you, let's just say you decide you would like to, there's a bylaw that you see in another municipality that you think might work here, why couldn't you do the research on it and bring it forward? Like, I don't see anything wrong with that.
Right. but-
Why does it have to be, like, it could be brought forward,
It
I
doesn't
don't know.
really have to be, as long as, send it to the chair, and we'll take it to the committee, and then we start work on it, and then take it to the working session.
Right.
It's not gonna waste that much time if they say, no, forget it, it's just maybe a couple hours of meetings, right?
Right.
Our meetings are typically, when we meet, it's an hour. We don't finish in an hour, we're done, right? We move on, so I don't really care if we spend 2 hours on something and end up tossing it.
I think
It's not
where
the big deal.
Councillor Sepman's coming from, if a councillor wants to bring something forward for council's consideration, then the governance committee shouldn't be able to say, no, you can't bring it forward.
Right.
So
I
we've
don't
got to
think
have
we ever do
something.
that, no, we've never done that.
But it has happened.
Not my committee hasn't.
It has happened.
Yeah. But we need a mechanism to get it to council, rather than the governance committee, for whatever reason. I mean,
Right.
Right.
it shouldn't happen, but if he says it did,
Yeah.
you know, it may happen.
Well, that would be the working session, I suppose, then
Yeah.
come up and say, how come?
But, and
how
that does
come
solve
this
that.
rejected it?
That does solve that. So we meet just for a
Okay.
half hour every second month,
Yeah.
just to say, hey, look, this is what we want to go forward. We got a straw poll, let's go.
Yeah,
That does actually resolve my issue, my concern.
That's reasonable.
Yeah, I think so.
I think
Right.
that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can add in, did I have in here what it reads? Okay, meet as required with a minimum of working session every 2 months.
Yeah.
That way we know we have at least a working session. Even if we don't get to meet as the committee, then if something's going on, it's a really busy month and.
Why not have a working session as needed?
Yeah, so say, it was.
Because if there's nothing going on,
Okay,
there's nothing
yeah.
going on, why have
Meet
a meeting?
As
So if we
required.
put it as
How about-
needed.
But in fairness, the next 6 months, we have a lot of bylaws that we need to
Oh, yeah.
fix.
Yeah.
There's no
And
question about
adjust
that.
and change and,
Yeah,
Yeah,
Um,
but that can still be as needed.
yeah.
it's still as needed.
It's still as
Yeah.
needed. I think as needed is better than try to have a scheduled one, because once it's in there,
Yeah.
you can
Yeah,
always change it, but if you
Okay.
don't have it in there, you don't gotta worry about it.
we just have to make sure we keep on top of it.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's a lot
Yeah.
going on. yeah. Yes,
Because, I mean, this is gonna be for a longer period of time than
Yeah.
this next 6 months.
that's right, yeah, Councilor
Okay.
Russell.
Heisler?
So under governance committee again, does bylaws need to be capitalized?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not sure.
yes.
Does it?
Oh, no, only if it's the name of the
If you're referring to a
bylaw.
bylaw,
Yeah, no, it
yes,
does
Okay,
not.
yeah, so it's only, same thing, it's proper noun it
Yeah.
is, and if
But
it's
in
not.
this case, I don't
That's
think
right.
so.
Where does it say bylaws in this one?
It says
A, B,
A and B.
N, 2
Yeah,
and
there
B.
should be a little bit, those should be lowercase, yeah.
NC.
All of them, yeah.
So, and the other question I had is under B, you have review existing bylaws based on the input from residents of Hanwell Rural Community,
That's what was said at the last working session, yeah.
but we don't have residents on the committee.
No,
But
So,
they do see the bylaws and they
may
want
say,
something added to a bylaw or want, you know, they may come up with a suggestion and we should have that vehicle that we can consider them.
but how are we doing that?
well, I haven't got any yet, but if someone did, I imagine they would email me or somebody would.
Yeah, they
We
email.
do have a suggestion policy,
That's right.
so
So it's,
they can just be referred to the suggestion policy
There you
procedure.
go.
there you
And
go.
when we get to that policy to renew, I'll remind you to bring this up again.
Well,
Put it
should
on
we
the
put
list.
that in there then?
We've got that
Specifically?
policy.
Yeah, from the
Yeah.
suggestion policy, please refer to suggestion policy, or,
Yeah,
because I really honestly don't know if people realize that they have any
They
input.
probably don't.
Yeah, so review existing bylaws based on input from residents of the Hamel rural community based on the suggestions policy or from council to which, basically inserting before that first or, we're inserting per the suggestion policy?
Yeah, via the suggestion policy or something to that effect, so that people,
I
residents
forget
have,
how it's worded, but
yeah.
I will
I
look at,
referred a resident who called me about how to go to that.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, but
Okay.
if somebody wants to do it, they're gonna say, we'll put it through the suggestion policy, so that's, again, it's kind of double saying it. I mean, it's the residents of Hanwell, we don't have to say where it's coming from, we know it's coming from the suggestion policy. So do we have
well,
to say
it was
that?
Well,
called
nobody knows
specifically-
about the suggestion
yeah,
policy,
and-
is kind of where I was
Yeah.
going.
And the
But we
reason
have a
specifically
suggestion
call it
policy that we
residents
should
of
be aware
Hamel,
of.
we don't want people from the city of Fredericton telling us how to write our bylaws. We want
No.
people from within our community.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Right. Okay, so the only other question that I have was with beginning when I thought we were just doing grammatical, so we're going back to page 1.
Okay,
Definition of committees and the committee of the whole. Excuse me, you refer to them as being less formal than a full council meeting.
Yes.
So does that mean all the committees of the whole are gonna be like that? So-
We talked about that, first thing we said, remember we're gonna pull that sentence out of there and move it to section 9 of the procedural bylaw.
Okay,
That section in red is coming out.
but is it going in the procedural bylaw as that's the way it's gonna be done for committees of the whole?
All
No.
committees,
All committees.
all committees
So
are
that's-
technically less formal than a council meeting.
But that's my concern. When I ran my Parks and Rec, it was very formal. So that, as chair, that's
Yeah.
how I was comfortable doing it.
And that's your
And
choice,
that's, you know, but, so that's why I'm going with like a lot of these.
yeah.
We're not going to take minutes or anything like that, is that?
Technically, you're not supposed to take minutes in committee meeting, if you follow Robert's Rules of Order. It's supposed to be notes. That's same thing with the committee of the whole and else like that. So you don't have to do that, you can choose to do it if you want. But this
Yes,
is the
because
minimum way you have to do things.
Our policy was always, the chair can choose to
Yeah.
do as they see fit in terms of running their.
Okay, so if you want me to
So-
add in here, well, it says here, format may be decided by the committee chair.
Okay, so we're good?
Yeah.
Okay, just wanted to double check.
Anything else?
Nope.
That one's not too bad, I think that should be fixable tonight, okay? Let's go to procedural bylaws. So this one, I think, we didn't get a chance to really go through a lot, but I did get some suggestions of stuff also anyway. I think I got them all in there. I'm hoping everybody read it before tonight. But if you want to flip through there is, or do you want to page by page? Is it fine by me, or do you want, for you guys, or do you want to actually just look at the changes spots? Because anything that's not in red is existing bylaw.
Okay, so I'm gonna make a statement.
Okay,
You're probably sick of hearing from me, but, when I've looked at other municipalities, local governments, and their procedural bylaws, it is the procedural bylaw for council. It is not for administration.
okay.
So ours talks about the proceedings of council and administration.
Oh, the title you mean?
Not only the title, but there are things noted about staff, and really and truly, it should not be in a council procedural bylaw.
Like where?
Oh, damn, I have to go down and double check now, let me see. Let me just go through.
While she's doing that, perhaps,
Yes.
a
you
couple
guys go
things I
ahead.
can know, while you're, so we added in point of order. Since a lot of people were asking about it, we're flat out just gonna define what quorum means, because of the whole, is it half of council plus one, or are you including the mayor plus one, or is it, so we're just gonna say, the calculation basically is quorum is at least 5 council members plus the chair. And that takes into account, because it is 5 council members, regardless if the mayor is included or not, the number works out the same. And if the mayor's not here, the deputy mayor becomes the chair, but it's still 5 council members. That doesn't change. It's based on seats, not the number of people that are there at the meeting. And the number of seats is 8, which means it's 5 people for quorum, half plus 1.
What happens in the case of this, where we're missing permanently, or not permanently, but over a period of time, missing one council? Right now, we only have 7, we don't have 8.
If it falls to 5, no one can be basically sick, or you can't have quorum. That's why after some of the past elections, regular general elections, the new community, or the existing community, wasn't able to meet, because they didn't have enough people run in the election to have quorum to meet at all. So they couldn't do anything, they couldn't set up a budget, they couldn't do any new changes, they couldn't work on existing projects, other than the staff that might have been there. And if they only had, like us at the time, only had 1 or 2 staff, they shut down, right? That's just the way it is, so we have to make sure we always have at least 5 people.
The Local Governance Act, though, does say that.
Defines quorum.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it also states that vacancies are included, right?
Yeah, vacancy, yes, that's right, that's
Sorry, I
right.
wasn't paying
Yes,
attention.
so it's 8, that's what I mean, whether it's vacant or not, it's 8 people, so you need 5, half plus 1. Whether someone's
Okay.
sitting in that seat or not, and that's the problem, right? If it falls below that 5, then you can't. That's why, but sort of literally what I said, the municipalities, some of them have, after the last election, couldn't meet because they didn't have enough people. Because it's based on seats, not who's there.
Because the way this reads, we have to have 6, right? Because you got at least 5 council members plus the chair.
And that's the confusion I'm trying to get rid of. Yes, it's always 5 councillors, regardless of who's sitting in that chair right there.
Okay.
Doesn't matter who it
So
is.
you really got 6.
No, because
No.
if you're not there,
Right.
and the deputy mayor's sitting there, the deputy mayor's still the chair, but you still have to have 5 councillors.
5 plus,
5 plus the chair. Because you need someone to chair the meeting. So if you only had 5, and one of them was the deputy mayor,
right,
Okay.
and you sit in that chair, you now don't have quorum anymore because you have 4 plus a chair.
I get what you're saying.
Well,
So-
it makes sense, there's 9, half of 9 is 4.5, right?
Which would have to
Plus
run up
1
to
would be
5.
5.5, so you can't do that, so it has to be
It's
6.
fi-
Isn't that
If you're
what it
including the
is?
mayor,
Yes.
yes, and if you're not
Yeah.
including the mayor, then it's
That's right,
8,
yeah.
4 plus 1. yeah. That's why the number is the same, it's just you have to make sure the calculation is done the same way. This tries to remove that because it just seems to blow people's minds. And in fact, it seems that we're confused about it right now even.
Yep.
Just define it. The Local Governance Act says half plus 1. This is half of our council, it's 5 plus the chair. So
Okay.
that removes all confusion. Hopefully,
Well,
maybe not, but it hopefully will remove the confusion.
no, it is there in black and white, if that's what you mean.
Yeah,
Yeah, so you're gonna have 5 plus 1.
5 plus the chair.
5 plus the chair.
So it's 6,
Right.
Not really.
Not really.
5,
Five plus
5
the-
councillors plus the chair.
whatever.
Someone else will decide.
But it
Sure,
makes sense
someone-
if you read it.
It makes
It's
sense.
there, it's black and white.
Yeah.
5 councillors plus the chair.
The way it's written in the Local
If you got 3
Governance Act-
councillors or 4 councillors plus the chair, you don't have a quorum.
That's right. Simple as that.
Yeah. So if we had 3, we got 8, if we had 4 vacancies, we couldn't have quorum.
Couldn't have quorum. And that has happened. Not with us, but it has
has-
happened
it has
in New
happened.
Brunswick.
Oh, yeah.
Quite a few times, actually.
So they
More
had
than we really-
mass resignations in places and they didn't have enough councillors for quorum.
Or they didn't have enough people run. There's not,
There's that too.
general election, not enough people offered.
Yeah. So what did they do to resolve that?
They had to wait till the by-election.
Oh,
So they went 4 months without a council meeting.
Wow.
Wow, that's insane. I mean,
But it is what it is. That's the legislation and
no,
Elections Act,
yeah.
right?
I think maybe local government should revisit that.
Yeah. They shouldn't be counting vacant seats.
No, they shouldn't be
Really?
counting, I don't think they should be counting vacancies.
But then what becomes quorum? So there's
Half,
Half
half
plus
of
one?
the,
half plus 1 is half of what? It's always half of who's there?
How-
half of the full seats, half of the seats
In
not counting,
our
not counting
case-
the, not counting the
In our case, it should
vacancy.
be half of 7, because we have 7,
Yeah.
so it should be half of 7.
If they didn't count vacancies, you wouldn't have a problem.
That's right.
Yeah,
Which
that's
is
the
really
thing.
silly
Yeah.
counting vacancies, but
Yeah,
I don't
because
get it.
you can't help a vacancy if somebody doesn't run or something.
Yeah.
No, well, it's a valid point though. This raises more confusion than what some people probably realize.
But
right?
if we can't go against the Local Government Act.
No.
So the Local Government
This
Act
this
says-
satisfies the Local Governance Act, but removes the vagueness or attempts to remove the vagueness. Because the way it's written in the Local Governance Act is really confusing.
Anyway, it is what it is. Move
It is what it
It
is.
is good. We
Okay,
know,
so getting back to what I was talking about,
Okay.
administration.
Yeah, and then we'll come back, when we come back, after that, we'll come back to page 3.
Okay, so basically, yes. So 1 is the title. It shouldn't be under, administration shouldn't come under the proceedings of
Easy
council.
fix, yeah.
So what I was noticing is the management meetings. We talk about staff shall hold 1 management meeting per month and things like that. So I'm not sure that should be included in the proceedings of council if this is not a council
meaning,
meeting.
that's
That's my
interesting.
thing.
Yeah.
Under agenda, it says the clerk shall prepare the agenda.
The clerk, and that's what's written in the Local Governance Act. The clerk writes the agenda.
So if it's in local governance act, should it be in here and then we stick with administration in the title?
Well,
Playing
they're not
with
doing, they have very specific roles that are defined though, right? And the clerk is what calls the meetings, or I believe, I forget, it's written somewhere else, the mayor plus
The
2
clerk.
councilors or something?
Mayor and 2 councilors can call it.
Can,
Call it,
not may,
yeah.
can.
Anyway, that's one of the things that I was noting, so something to think about. So we'll just move back to where we were.
Okay, yeah, because the reason I think that that's in there, because we wanted it to be, we were having it, and we wanted it officially written down.
Quite honestly, I think it happened when we just had one staff. So it was just kind of all encompassing. Whereas now, because we have more staff, we're
Right.
growing, I think they should really, truly be separated. There should be one to deal with administration. We should have HR policy and all that stuff.
We don't yet though, right? So-
But we should.
Because the procedural bylaws usually proceeds to council, not
Right.
council and admin.
So we
Right.
could take that section out, the management meeting section, we could take that out.
Right,
And build a different policy.
Because that's not really a council meeting.
But until we do have an HR policy, and if you
Well-
want to cover this, then leave it for now, and then, because we are, like you say, we're changing these.
well, the problem is, it's a change against 3 more readings, even if it's a minor amendment.
Yeah.
So-
So I have a question. So if we're taking it out, we're still gonna have a management meeting, we're just not gonna have which is fine. I just wanna make sure that we're still proceeding the same way. We'll still have our management meeting. Or do we call it a council meeting?
So
That's my thought,
Yeah.
like, should it be a council and committee meeting? I don't know, should it be? Although this one is saying that council doesn't need to attend.
Right, and I think that's where we're going with that.
Council
Which
doesn't
I-
need to attend the management meeting?
Yes.
Yeah, because they should attend, because
I
that's,
should,
I
but
know,
then
but
us
that's,
doesn't- it's not
in this, the
required.
change, no,
No.
that's not what it's saying.
It's not one of your 20%.
but it's not part of your 20s, you know, the,
No.
Right,
But-
that's why it's written specifically like that, that it doesn't count as that.
Yeah.
Because you can only count that what's written in the local government
There are
act.
no other meeting counts like that.
No, nothing does.
So it doesn't need to be, that doesn't need to be in there.
yeah.
Okay.
There's not another meeting that counts like that.
Well, if we're ripping the whole section out, though, making a policy for it, then it's not needed to even be there at all, right? What is, let's read the room here, what's the consensus around the room? Take it out or leave it in?
We're talking about the management.
We're at section 8, yeah.
I would take it out because it's not, it's the procedural bylaws for council, not for management meetings. Like, it's not a council
Meeting.
thing.
It's
not a
not
council meeting.
really a council meeting, no, it's not. And
No, but I would leave it in just to make sure it's covered somewhere. If you just take it out, then, you know.
Well, we'll have to have a policy, that's all, for,
Also
for.
We can add
use
it,
of staff.
can't we add it to the meeting policy? Like the one we just went through,
That's
the-
a committee.
the committee's policy?
It's not a committee though.
It's not a committee,
No,
though, yeah,
okay.
it's technically not, it's a management.
So Sackville runs this kind of thing,
Right,
I'm not sure exactly if they call it a management meeting, or they used to,
right.
but they call it council and committee. And they allow presentations and that kind of stuff, so it's a little bit different. But it's still an update on what's going on within the community.
Okay, so
Except that
if that's just a terminology issue is the only problem here, well, we could just change it back to council and committee meeting. It was originally written in the
But
first
then
draft.
council has to attend, or
No,
not has
it
to,
doesn't
but
have to, it
council
should.
should attend
But it
council
should attend either
committees,
way,
right?
right? But it's not mandated because in the local governance act, it says basically only regular special meetings of council. In fact, I think it only says regular.
It's
meetings.
only regular.
It's only regular, yeah.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
that's the only thing that's mandated.
yeah. So do we just change it, if it's just a matter of terminology, I can change it to a council and committee meeting.
I don't know which is the
It's
best.
6 to 1 and half a dozen the other, does it really matter?
Except, I guess when we we'll,
How about, well, let's keep going through it and see if we get there, and we'll take your
Yes.
feedback on it
Yeah,
to see
okay.
because there are some other minor changes, just wanna see if there's any. So we go back to page 3.
I have a couple of comments.
Yes,
In
which page?
3,
Okay, yeah.
in section B2, shouldn't the sentence start with a capital C?
Yes, it should.
And I would like to bring up, and remember I'm new, please, the difference between shall and may.
Page 3.
Shall is a requirement, may is optional.
And why is that the case with election of the deputy mayor?
Because we have to have a deputy mayor, so we have to have a way of getting a deputy mayor.
But it says such elections may take place, every 2 years instead of shall take place every 2 years?
Because it's not a requirement to do it every 2 years. Some places, it depends on what the way you want to do it and when you want to have it. For example,
What's the-
New Maryland, there's no legal requirement on how you do it, it's just you have to have one.
Some places the deputy mayor stays forever, some, or like the whole term. Some places they change every year. We have in the past, because we've been in,
That's what I was gonna ask,
5-year
what happened
terms,
in the past.
you know,
We've done it a couple different ways, quite frankly, in the past, and like, if you think, the Village in Maryland, and I think we're Muckto as well, they elect directly to the, and then it's for the whole term.
well, it's because.
No, they have to go by
New Maryland,
vote.
New
It's by
Maryland,
vote, but yeah.
yeah,
Whoever
they've
has the
got,
greatest vote.
Yeah,
they've
it's
got, all their councillors are at large, so
Yeah.
every councillor
Right.
gets the most
highest
votes.
votes is deputy mayor, yeah.
As deputy mayor.
Forever, you know,
But that's the way that they've decided to do it,
That's
right?
right.
So,
I think Fredericton takes turns.
They do.
every how many years?
I don't know.
1 year?
It was
Every
anyway.
2.
Is
No,
it two?
it's two.
It was one, wasn't it?
No, I think usually they have, during a normal term, I think they have 2 deputy mayors, or 2
Yeah.
opportunities.
Yes, halfway through they.
So anyway, that's the difference between shall and may. So we have to have one, so that's the shall, but how often it is the may, so we can
So
choose.
when do we ever talk about that?
We
Like we're a
haven't.
new Hanwell now.
Right, we haven't, it's certainly something
When
that
do
can be
we
brought
talk
up in the
about
council.
It's in June, isn't it? It's coming right around the
It's
corner.
coming up in June, is
Yeah.
what it says, or,
Is it June, is that what it says?
Yes.
No.
that's
that's
when
2
the
years
last
is June.
one
It says it shall be
election
in 2 years, it could be.
in
Yeah.
June of 2021 is when the last.
So it'll be June 2023, yeah.
Personally, and deputy mayors, you included, have done bang-up job, it's not that. But giving a counselor the experience of being deputy mayor builds our capacity for governance and serving residents. And I think there's great value in that. It's not to say that one deputy mayor for the entire 4-year term is not going to be as good day 4, year 4, last day, as it's just having experience like chairs of committees. Well, we used to, I don't know what we do now, appoint them every year, and it was probably changed up over successive years to give people experience in a different portfolio. So those are my thoughts about it. I don't know if it takes a,
I agree. I think it's
Or vote.
good for everybody, and let's pray to God, nothing ever happens to the mayor, but it's good to have a couple of people kind of trained in the situation, the same, so that's really why I agree with you, Brent. Let's pray to God, nothing ever happens to the mayor.
Thank you.
No, but I mean, it's still good that everybody gets the experience.
So what isn't defined then with this is, because it's in May, how the decision is made to call for the change after the 2-year point.
And the problem being, when this was written, it was based on the 4-year
It
terms.
was written in 4
The last term was a 5-year term, and this year was a 5-year term. So we're gonna be back to 4 years terms at the end of this 5-year term.
Yeah, but then there's a third person, the last.
So the last
Well, it
one
year,
doesn't,
the person gets 1
it
year.
doesn't make sense, no. Like I
Yeah,
said,
the
then
last
you'd have a,
person's
then you'd
1
have a
year.
1-year term.
Well, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
You get a year of it.
But we still gotta, we go back to
What
the
we did
cycle
last
again
time
anyway.
is you.
No, I stayed for the
You
3.
stayed for the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You stayed for the extra year.
we just didn't have the extra one, that's all I got. But, sorry, go ahead, Councilor Axel.
So, my question, and I think I mentioned this last time, was it says, like, at the first official meeting of a new council for a 2-year term, and then we had the whole discussion, well, are we a new council? No, we're not, yes, we are, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I still think it should put, instead of a new council, it should be after a general election.
That's a good call.
That's a good idea,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right,
I mean, we
Yeah,
likely.
then we know.
or
Yes.
after municipal reform.
yes, or, yeah.
That's a once in a
This was a
generation.
by-election in our
Yeah,
county.
it's a once in a generation.
Yeah.
You don't think so?
No.
Not even close.
What's
Oh, I
that?
don't think they're gonna drag anybody else into this.
Oh, I think there's more to come on this reform thing.
Oh, you won't believe it, yeah.
But I don't think we'll be changing our area.
No.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Really?
I think there might be more areas put together.
Yeah.
These
Oh, yeah.
Not for us.
Rural districts.
We're only concerned with here in this document.
But government don't even know what they're doing because they're extra informed.
Okay, so let's get back on topic here. So I don't wanna be here all night.
That's
We
right.
Probably will be anyway.
Moving
So,
along.
such elections may take place at the first official meeting after a general election, comma, for a 2-year term and every 2 years thereafter, with all council blah, blah, blah. So just we're inserting that after a general election to clarify that, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anything else with page there?
So would we discuss it at the next management meeting in June, or are we
That's a good idea.
happy with?
No, I think we discuss it at the June meeting.
It's worthy of discussion, I think. Let's just put it on the meeting for June. Sherry?
Because you're not busy enough?
That's small potatoes.
Yeah, I'm being facetious.
Anything else? In conflict of interest, that was changed and upon taking office. I forget what it was before that. It may not have actually existed. I think it was just each member of council. Page 4. Put in specifically calling reference to the Local Governance Act. That was all at the very bottom in the regular meetings. We had to put as a guideline, because we had the management meeting there, but if the management meeting is now going to be a committee we'll get to it when we get there. We might need to change that. So Robert's Rules of Order shall be used.
Period.
Period. Next page, we're just cleaning up the word repealed. I
It
know
will have to be changed to, Darren, number 9.
9.
9, where you have Robert's Rules again.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Sorry.
As the guide, not a guide.
Yeah, as
As
the
the guide. Yeah, as for 3, just in case for people that might not be familiar with it, the provincial government is horrible at doing this. You look at legislation, every time something's repealed, it just says repeal, 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 repeal. Before they repealed the entire Municipalities Act and replaced it with the Local Governance Act, 3/4 of that act just said repealed in it. It was impossible to even follow it or read it, so every once in a while, it's a good practice to go back in and just clean that up. This has been there since 2015, so I think it's time we can clean up, pull that line out of there, right?
Could we look at 4C, 8, 7 and 8, please?
4C, 7 and 8.
It's on page 5.
So that's the deadline for receipt of the agenda materials. The clerk is 3 p.m. on the Wednesday preceding the meeting.
Yes, so this refers to our council meeting
Correct.
last night. So, in 7, it says receipt of agenda materials. So 3 p.m. And the materials from PRAC did not arrive in my possession until Tuesday, just after 2. So then in 8, it says any additional matter not included on the agenda shall only be considered with the unanimous consent of all members of council present at the meeting.
Valid point, yep.
So when Mr. Stevenson emailed that afternoon, Wednesday afternoon, yesterday afternoon, and it, through Terry's chain of messages, suggested that he might be able to speak. Should we not have put that as an addition to the agenda, or said no when Mr. Forbes asked for him to make a comment? I just need clarification.
You are correct. That is the proper process that we should have followed.
So back to 7 then. When do you think, or is it important to this council for us to stick to the 3 p.m. on Wednesday preceding the meeting for agenda materials?
I think it's a good idea to stick to that, but also if something has to be added to it, stick to item 8. If we're gonna make an addition to the agenda, it has to be done with the full consent of council.
I think that, yeah, I think that, and I get her, what she's saying here, and I actually have a bit of a problem with it too. And it's not the constant, last minute agenda item things. There's a lot of things that have happened that really didn't need to be added to the agenda at the last second, that could have waited a month.
But that's up, again, that's up to council to decide, right?
Right, but it should be up to council to decide it,
Right.
right, that whether it gets added, that should be noted.
Well, that's
A heads
section,
up
that
is
is section
fine.
8, right?
Yeah, a heads up is fine, but I think we've been not really, to be honest here, we haven't really been actively enforcing that in the
No,
past.
but we should follow section 8.
We should,
Yeah.
yeah, I think going forward,
But
we
this
should
is
be paying
fine,
better attention
we
to
just
it.
gotta make sure we follow section 8.
Yeah,
Well, I'm wondering if it is fine. What was the original thinking for Wednesday before the meeting? Was that to give people
Give people
time
time
to
to go
read?
over, yeah.
Yeah.
exactly.
So where is that changed such that at 2 on Wednesday afternoon of a council meeting, I have to try and keep track
Yeah.
of
In this-
who Maple
if I may at this
Valley
point,
is?
the specific reason for this one having to be added was because it was going to go to PrAC.
But now, we're in a whole different area of requirement for council of Annual Borough Community. Do we report to PrAC, or does PrAC report to us?
Can I comment on this at some point?
You're sure?
All right. The way I look at this is, if you want something on the agenda, you put it in earlier. We cannot, we knew that this was coming from Regional Service Commission.
I didn't know.
They said-
It was on the agenda on
It was-
Friday.
Yeah,
There was the actual thing,
yeah.
what they were talking about was on the agenda. We just didn't have the materials until Tuesday,
Right.
for whatever
So they were on
reason.
the agenda. I mean, they're,
We
you know,
didn't get the materials.
they're
Right,
basically
we got
our
the
staff,
notes.
they're getting it to us, I mean, yes. And as you know, people apply for things at certain times. It's not unusual, to get letters at the very last minute, even at PrAC. You'll get them that day. I mean, I'm always constantly getting emails every month on fairly large contentious ideas, or even if they're not. But we know that that particular item is coming up. You know, we know that he's bought the land, they know the RC 11 is working on it, they get it to you as fast as they can. They receive very often materials on the very last day, because people will realize they want to come and, comment on it. So, I mean, it's not that we don't know that these things, this is intended for things that could normally be, that you want to add, or I want to add, or, someone that wants to come from the public and add something, do a presentation. That's what this is intended to. That, what Mr. Stevenson sent in yesterday was just additional information on his file that we were already aware that we were dealing with.
Right.
So it's not like it was something new that just popped up that we had. So Lonnie, when he was here, was doing his presentation. He was just asking if the applicant could apply some more information
Just
to this.
clarification.
Just clarification. It wasn't like it's a new item for our agenda that he had to make up his mind, a week before that he was going to have.
But
So
sometimes we might have
It's a
to add,
totally different situation than what is covered in this.
Okay, Councilor Isom.
So it was on the agenda, yes, but we didn't receive the materials.
Yeah.
So I have to agree with Councillor Pack, like,
Me too.
I work Monday to Friday, sometimes 7:30 till 5. I don't have time to look at materials at 2 o'clock when they come in on the day of our meeting.
Yeah.
Like, it makes it extremely difficult to be informed.
Oh, yeah, you don't have to tell me, I agree completely. I think the question here is, and unfortunately we don't have someone here to answer it. So I almost said it again, Capital Regional Service Commission was adamant that this had to be done because it was going to PrAC. I guess the question I would have liked to ask them, I should have asked, but we flowed through it so fast. Why was it such a rush to have to go to PrAC this month? Why could that not have gone to the next month? Like, if it was because that information, you said some things go to PrAC, but maybe they shouldn't be doing it either. Like, there's an expression for this. It's a lack of planning on your part should not justify an emergency on my part. Why are we rushing to do something at the last second? And why is, quite frankly, why is Capital Regional Service Commission rushing at the last second? Just because someone realized, oh, I have to build a building, I need a permit for it, and they drop it at the last second. It really shouldn't be, like, you should have known that, you didn't know you were gonna build something there? Like, a couple months before this, like, it's not like somebody wakes up in the morning and goes, oh shit, I'm gonna build something today. No, you don't, you
No, they've been
know.
working on, right,
Oh, sorry.
in all fairness to these people, they've been working on this for quite some, on all these projects, they are actually quite overloaded these days. They've been working on these things just didn't pop up, he just didn't decide yesterday
Right.
that he's gonna build this building. I mean, if you look, for example, I've been trying to get the information for the Yoho playground.
Right,
I
right.
mean, that should have been done months ago, but I mean, you're dealing with outside people, you're living with surveyors, you're working with contractors, you're working with, the applicant, I mean, and they're all going around in circles, I mean, they're trying to get this done for their building season.
But respectfully,
Yeah.
they're also working with the rural community of Hanwell that has regulations for
Actually,
receipt of
I'm
leaves.
not 100% sure on that. They call us and ask for a recommendation. We are not, unless it's a rezoning, they are not obligated to do that. That could go to PrAC without it ever coming to us.
Yeah, that's something else I've had a
So, I
problem
mean,
with for a long
that's the
time
way it
too.
is.
It's just the way, until we
So-
have our own planning
They
department, right? That's,
Councillor Septon had a comment.
Well,
I wasn't
and to
quite
this point,
finished.
sorry, go ahead.
They prefer to have, our opinion, but they're not required to have it. So if we could not, if they want to try and get their permits out, keep their things moving, then, and if we won't accept it, they could just say, fine, there was no comment from the rural community of Hanwell. They really could.
yeah, they could. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, this is all fair debate, by the way, but I have to agree with Councillor Heisler and Councillor Dr. Peck, because yesterday in that research, there could be a lot of traffic in that property. He answered all the questions properly, but I needed the time to research those particular pits, that particular thing. You have a narrow 20-foot place in a cul-de-sac that could potentially have 20 homes back there, that he's gonna put over an environmental thing. I think in that situation, this one here, I found it particularly offensive. I really did, and I studied as much as I could. He answered the questions well, good on the constituent, and we did make it work. But that has to be the absolute exception, not the rule. And if PrAC doesn't need our permission, fair, don't bring it to us then.
But
Because the
with-
reality is now, I approve something, and I'm hoping I made the right decision. That we're not ruining people's properties by people driving through.
But
Was he
with
not-
all due respect, everybody, what we didn't do was follow section 8, this VII.
Yes.
Yeah.
If we followed that, we wouldn't have a problem. That's the way we put things onto the agenda that didn't fall within the guidelines. We have that vehicle to use, we just didn't follow procedure and use it. There could have been a procedural objection done up on that, because it has to be done unanimously by council. That's what it's there for. So we have it, we just didn't use it, unfortunately.
Would also like the deadline for receipt of materials to
Agreed.
be firmly
Enforced.
followed.
Enforced.
But isn't
But
this,
if you
this-
still have section 8 in there.
but isn't this bylaw for council? It's not for people outside of council.
Yeah. So I mean,
That's my understanding of the bylaw. Am I wrong?
No,
What's
you're
the
right.
difference?
You're absolutely right.
So this is a procedure for council.
Yes.
Right.
It's not a procedure for RSC 11. So they don't,
No, so if they're not if they are ready, but they don't get it to us by this time, then they can't get our input.
That's right. If you stick by this, if they want our input and they aren't ready at the
Okay.
time that we are,
Yeah.
at our meeting, then I think that's ridiculous. I mean, why are we?
No, they'll just wait a month.
That's right.
No, they're not gonna wait a month. It's going to go to PrAC without
I've
our.
been on PrAC and
Yes, I know.
had proponents turned down regularly because it
Not because
missed the deadline.
It missed their deadline. It did not miss our deadline. Their deadline will continue. The things, unless it is let's say rezoning, that's the only thing that we have any, I mean, the intent of this is to, so that you don't have people coming out thinking, oh, well, I think I'll go mid next week and talk to you about my dog park. I mean, which actually they could they can walk in off the street and go under their 10 minutes. And this is kind of, we were turning down work from our staff, they are basically our staff. That, who are trying to get their stuff into us and trying to get it done in time for our meeting. And if we're saying you've got to have it in a week before, we don't want to talk to you. I mean, I can't even imagine that.
Yeah,
Councillor
Councillor.
Septon.
I respect what you're saying, and I think everybody in this room will know that I am not the smartest person in this room. I'm dyslexic, I like studying, I like to know what I need to know.
Then you're gonna have no input.
Excuse me, please, Deputy, I appreciate what you're
please,
saying.
yeah.
The point is, if they're gonna be, it's 3 weeks. The way 3 more weeks, we'll be right into their skin again. I mean, and once they start seeing our rhythm, the rhythm will work out.
See, this is, and it's the problem I have with PrAC, and we, even though they're our staff, we can't tell them what to do.
That's right.
That's just it. And though this may be a specific situation, it's not always gonna be a PrAC incident. There are other things that have come up too that we pushed through that we probably shouldn't have. But as far as things with PrAC and Capital Regional Service Commission go, we don't really have any say. So we're lucky that they're coming to us. It was a bad situation. I would have rather it be handled differently. Councilor Heisler.
So the suggestion though should be that we let them know that we do not want things coming at the last minute. They are our staff, so we can actually
Correct them.
say that to them,
Yep.
right?
Like I said, it's, follow the 3 o'clock deadline, but there's always gonna be exceptions to any rule, because things happen, the people need stuff, and that's why we have the VII to
So
get around that.
once this bylaw is pushed back through for third reading, then can you have a meeting? Because they're not going to listen to me. What about you meeting with Capital Regional Service
No,
Commission and say,
at the next directors meeting, like, I take stuff from you guys.
Yeah.
I'm your representative I'm a director, but only I represent you guys. So if you guys want something brought, by all means,
it would be
bring it
nice
to
to have this
me,
brought up, I think.
and I'll bring it up.
Yeah, please.
I don't
Okay.
mind bringing stuff up, and that's the way it should be working.
Councilor Heisler.
So my other question then, so just as an example, so this came up at the last minute. Yes, it was on our agenda, but if I don't feel comfortable, don't feel that I've been informed or had enough time to look at it, so should we have we should have not
Yeah,
agreed to the agenda?
that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
His worship
Is
was.
that,
That just would have
But
been
we
somebody
should,
bring up a
like-
point of order.
no, but I mean, it only takes one person to say no.
That's correct, yeah. It has to be
Yep.
unanimous.
So that's what we should do if we feel.
Well, we should, like I said, we should enact VII. If something comes that's not on the agenda, we should put it through there, and everybody has their say, and all it takes is one person to say no.
Okay.
Then it's done, it can't go on the agenda.
It can't go on
But
the
that's why that's there. So we just gotta follow our own bylaw. guys.
Yeah.
It's not that
Exactly.
difficult.
So anytime there's an addition to the agenda, we can say no.
But yes, you
Yeah.
have that option,
Okay.
but we have to go through this section of the act.
Yeah.
Right there, not included in the agenda, should only be considered with the unanimous consent
Okay.
of members of council. So that's
We've
what is
just
there.
not been doing it.
No, we
Correct.
haven't,
We
just
haven't
been
done.
really doing it.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, thanks to it.
but there's no reason we can't start,
Okay.
Correct. It's always room for improvement, right?
right?
Continuous improvement. We can do things better as we learn. Is that it for page 5, page 6?
Page 5, yep, D, it was talking about closed sessions.
Yes, okay.
I want to make a point here, closed sessions doesn't mean keep things secret from us right up until that night. I believe in a report that will be coming here, I'm sure. We have to still have agenda packages for it, we're talking about a closed session as well. There was many times I'm trying to figure out what's going on. Somebody said, hey, well, you must have read this, and I'm not going to speak of the particular. I was like, well, I don't recall
How
reading
could you
that.
read it if it's not on the
I don't recall
agenda?
knowing it, but come to, then I look back, because I kept the document, I was like, crap, what was there? We were only learning about it at closed session. Being surprised at 7 PM is not a fair process.
It just can't go on the agenda, but council should be
No,
aware.
but we still supposed to get the
Yes.
information. We're
We
supposed
could
to
send,
get the
we could
data.
send it out confidentially to council, and
Absolutely.
they could have it. Again, that's what we should be doing.
Right, so we're supposed to have the information.
Well, yeah.
We are supposed to have the information.
So you're going into the closed session blind, you don't know what's going on, you're sitting there saying, well, duh.
And too many times we've seen it, and I'm not trying to throw shade here, but I can't work that way because I'm dyslexic. I have to take time to read things, I have to understand.
No, that's a fair point, and I think that's what we've gotta start doing. Councilors have to be aware of what we're gonna be talking about in closed session, and that's something we can get staff to work on with us, so they know. I don't know, it's a surprise to me too. We're
Right.
all in the
No,
dark,
all the same things happen
but
all.
we shouldn't be.
And while I
I don't
expect,
understand this, I don't think I've ever come to a closed session and not known what we're talking about.
Oh, I
I
have,
can
Oh,
give you
yeah,
a list.
yeah, there's-
Oh,
In fact, I have
All
the
the
list.
time.
yeah.
That being said though, there is going to be exceptions. I can appreciate that, but that should be the exception, not the rule. Does that
We
make
have to
sense?
be aware. So, closed session is on the agenda, closed session, the item will not be on the agenda, but the items will be sent out two councillors
Part of the package.
confidentially.
And they'll say on it, confidential,
Confidential.
not
We even sent
shared.
in a separate
Separate-
email if
separate
we want
package.
it, and
Yeah.
just so that it's
Yeah.
fine.
We have a regular package, and if it's closed session, we have a closed
That's
session package.
Yep,
That's easy, that's an easy fix, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's
I
something-
agree.
it's an easy fix.
Thank you.
Should we put that in here as a line VI then, to say that, how would be the best way to word that then? Information for closed sessions should be sent in a confidential email,
Marked confidential.
marked confidential to council prior to the meeting.
Where does it say closed session, cause we could put it in
We're
there.
in section D, yes.
Section
we're
D,
supposed to
on
be.
page
Yeah, there we are.
six,
Okay.
Page 5 and 6.
Yep,
Yep,
So we can put
just
it,
exactly, just add it to there, so then we know.
Mark, I mean, and it's, we're gonna make it easier for everybody, because then we can get through that faster too, as opposed to the preamble and stuff.
Makes perfect sense.
okay, give me a minute to write this down.
This has only been going on since 2014.
Yeah, no kidding.
Rome wasn't built in a day, your worship, but I appreciate what you're saying. Yeah.
But like I said, like Darren says, we know, we learn, we move on, nobody's an expert here, I mean, none of us are.
I look at everything as a work in progress.
Well, that's right, that's what this is. We
Look,
learn as
there
we
are
go
cities
through.
that have been around for 200 years that still make mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Just look at the
it's not just
provincial
us.
government.
That's right. In a, yeah, just trying to get the wording this down, hang on a second here. So I told you this would be a long one. Comma. So I have here for VI, the information for closed session shall be sent to council in a separate email, comma, marked as confidential. Sound about right?
And if it's super secret, you can't send it through email because if you're afraid of spam, just make sure the packages are here.
But it can't be super secret, because then we don't know.
No, but I
We don't
mean,
know.
it has to be printed for whatever,
It should be printed.
security reasons, because there is sometimes security reasons are something.
Maybe
Maybe it
we-
can be printed, and we can have packaged that we can pick up.
In that same VI, then I could also add, under exceptional circumstances, the package shall instead be printed in
Or just say email or printed package.
email or, okay, that's, yeah,
That way
perfect,
you
yeah.
can choose whatever security level you want.
Or printed package. Good call, yeah. Okay, E, agenda. So, we added in councillor comments in line 6 between 5 and 7.
Are we doing the consent section?
So here's the thing, I wanted to talk briefly about that. I don't know why that's not in red, because that also changed. So, it's the adoption of minutes. We had always thought that had to be done by a motion. I think at one point, this is where my memory is fuzzy. I think a previous iteration of the Local Governance Act did call that out, but it doesn't anymore. And I checked original Robert's Rules of Order and Robert's New Rules of Order. Nowhere does it mention that the agenda has to be approved by a motion of council. Some places, in particular, I've seen this in the district education councils, they use this consent section for basically old and unfinished business type of thing. And it just moves things through faster. You would have consent, and the difference between consent and a motion is that the chair basically just calls for consent. Does everyone agree, yes or no? And if someone doesn't agree, then something would be pulled out of the consent section and put into, moved down into old and unfinished business somewhere else in this, or would be on the agenda, whatever. It would be an agenda update.
You could have item like, I don't know, between 3 and 4, you could have section removed from consent section.
can I just say something
Yes.
from the clerk? I still cannot wrap my brain around what you're saying.
He doesn't want a
Pulling
motion
stuff
for it.
out, I'm trying to see how that's gonna process for me taking
Let's
notes.
say, for example, okay, the report from the treasurer, which we should all have by 3 p.m. the preceding week, okay? If there was something in that report that wanted to be discussed by council, something specific, then we pulled that treasurer's report out of the consent section, which we could also, if people don't like the consent thing, we could just do it as a single motion section and call it previous business or something. Doesn't matter the format. And then that would be its own thing, and then it would go back to the way it was right now. Basically, for that one item, would be come back to after the disclosures of interest, whatever. Still don't get it, huh?
Lost.
So would I move, like, For example, if I wanted something out of it, I would say, can I move to have the treasurer's report taken out for discussion?
Yes, that's
Is that-
exactly what you do.
Is that what you would do? Is that what we're talking about?
Yes, that's exactly the way they do it. They basically, something comes up, like it might be something that happened in a previous.
And then where would it go under discussion?
Yep.
Immediately?
Be up to the chair, to decide where it goes.
And
Because it
I
was-
kinda like the consent section, but I don't like some of the things we're consenting to, because once we consent to them, some of these things like reports, treasurer's report, they really should be put on and done a separate motion, cause there's on the floor for discussion and that type of thing, those
Why?
type of
We don't,
things.
we don't read the minutes of the reports in
Not
the
anymore.
public session anymore, no. So you're just accepting the report.
Right.
You're wasting time by going through every one of them.
Right.
I received this
Right.
report, I received this report, I received this, why? Why
And
would
then
we
the
do that?
reports get posted anyway, so.
Yes.
When do we discuss them?
According to this, number 8.
Business arising.
Business arising.
Oh, there it
consent
is,
section.
okay.
Oh, okay, there it is.
So you pull, so you're saying, so Councillor Heislop she wants to move to pull the report out, she's putting it under 8?
I guess, yeah.
And
that's-
then we're
Business
talking about it
arising.
later.
That must have been what I was correct.
I
So
didn't
I
see
would
it.
say, can I pull this out and add it under number 8?
Yes, that's the way we
And
do
we
it.
do
Okay.
it that way?
Yeah, that makes sense, I'm
Okay,
happy
and then
with
number
that.
8, we discuss it, okay.
Okay, that makes sense?
Yeah, sure.
Councillor Sapper.
And respectfully to that, because, well, if we've given a lot of leeway to our previous clerk. You don't take up time at all, so. But I mean, where there's a lot of, maybe some conversation back and forth, that's not necessarily how it's supposed to be. The clerk is actually supposed to be, it's our time to speak, so, well, she may have been talking about some things like that. She should have a highlighted that what we need to read, so when it comes to consent, it should be there anyway. So I don't think it's gonna be an issue, I agree with what you do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but there's certain things that the clerk has to explain to council.
In
Yeah.
theory though, but it can't, it goes through you in this case.
Yeah. And the
Wouldn't go to
idea,
me, I wouldn't know anything about the treasurer's report. That's her
She's gonna
job.
have to read.
yeah, but it should be in the report. The whole
That's
idea
right.
of the report is, and why we're supposed to have it, and we are getting at least better with reports, is that we would have enough time to review things to say, I have a question about that.
That's right.
So all the reports would still be in our agenda package?
Right.
Yes.
That's
And
right.
if we had a question, we would just bring it
Right,
forward?
absolutely.
Exactly.
So
That's right.
the package doesn't change.
No,
It's just the
exactly.
agenda. And the reason I was trying to change, I'm not gonna forget you, Councilor Fox, and we're back to you, is that we had direction from the provincial government saying, you're spending way too much time on old business and not enough time on new business. 80% of your meeting should be new business going forward. And we're just, even to right now, we're still not doing that. So the idea of trying to do this, and why some other boards do this, is that it speeds the meeting up and allows you to focus on the public input and inquiries, presentations, new business, and upcoming activities, stuff like that.
Okay.
That's all, your focus in the meeting should be all the new things that you're gonna be working on going forward, new projects, new ideas, things that the public talking about. There's a bad culvert over in XYZ, and somebody talked to the Department of Transportation, but sure, I didn't know that was happening. These are the things that we need to focus on, right? Now, Councilor Fox, sorry.
So my understanding too, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that because it's a consent section and it doesn't require a motion,
Right.
you also don't need a motion to pull, you just
No,
ask that it be.
You just ask, it's just consent. And if people don't like that, it's another 6 of one, half a dozen, it doesn't really matter if it's a motion, it's the a motion generally is to carry some kind of legal weight. You're motioning to basically just adopt reports. That doesn't really make a lot of sense.
No.
Because it's already been posted on the website anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
By the consent, the consent section, the motion is already there. You consented it.
You
You
consented.
don't need a motion, but it's as good as a motion.
It's basically, the only difference is by the consent, by the chair calls for the question.
Yeah.
So instead of somebody saying, I motion to do this, and somebody seconds it, and then we vote, the chair just calls basically for a vote. That's what consent does. Councilor Pack.
I am thinking about our residents, and I've been looking at new councils and councils of entities that have been in place a long time, and many of them put draft minutes, and they have the draft watermark on them. I don't know how quickly you do the minutes after a council meeting.
depends
But
on the day.
Within a week, they are posted on the website, and everyone knows their draft, and that they have not been
Adopted.
rectified.
Adopted, yeah, or presented, yeah.
Whatever
Accepted.
those words are. Because if we have all of this in a consent section, we are going to have listeners or guests who go, what? But if they had the chance to at least have looked at the minutes from a previous meeting, thought about things and been more, feeling more a part of what had gone on, it's as simple as putting them on the website in a draft.
Yeah, there's nothing in the Local Governance Act preventing that.
I love the idea.
It would be up to, it's an operational thing, up to the clerk.
When it happens,
So I
it's 2 weeks or 3
could
weeks.
bring
I think
that
it's
up at the next management meeting for us to talk about?
If you want, it's, yeah, it's,
But can
again,
we
it's
not put it-
operational, right? It's up to Sherry.
great. But hold on, that's not operational.
What is it?
When we post the minutes, that's up to us, and then
No, but
Yeah, it's
the
up to
draft,
the
if you're asking for a draft,
to be
prior
uploaded.
to when it's being accepted, that would be up to her. Because there's nothing preventing a draft from being posted. You can't post the official minutes of it because, until it's been accepted by council.
Yeah.
And it will be consented to by council,
You can't, yeah.
Right.
which is as good as a motion. It just, like Councillor McKenzie says, it just saves time.
So, okay,
As
we'll
we-
bring this up in management session then. Because I love the idea of the draft, and it could be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whenever, but
Maybe put some thought into it, we could ask the clerk to just put some thought into it for next management meeting, on the possibility of it.
There's no
However,
way I'm putting a draft minutes up without having somebody vet it. That I can promise you right now. Like I
That's why
I
we send the
can't.
minutes out to
Like,
council
I
for
can't.
review and corrections and errors and
Normally,
stuff
yeah,
like that.
that is why we technically do that.
Yeah, because draft minutes could be problematic if there's something out there in the draft
Like,
minutes that,
it'll have to be
nobody
sent-
said that.
It'll have to be
You know
sent and
what I mean?
vetted, like I can't just, me,
That
yeah.
puts a whole responsibility on you.
So-
Yeah.
Councillors,
Go ahead,
Huston?
yeah, it's roundtable, go ahead.
So when we have the minutes and they're being sent to council, would it be, technically it's supposed to be like on the Wednesday before, so if anybody notices anything, can we, got a first draft, put them up then? Like if, do you know what I mean? If council has kind of looked at them, vetted them and said, okay, I don't see
I
anything.
think if I can get
or-
if I can get the minutes done, and I'm gonna be honest, I did them for today, they're done,
Okay,
I think.
Draft.
A rough draft, if I get the minutes done, and if I can send it out to council for them to look at, and get back to me, there's no foreseeable reason why it couldn't go out on, like, up online as a draft
Okay.
the next week.
okay.
But it's gonna depend on my week, I don't wanna
Right.
think that, it might not get up
Right.
until 2 weeks, or it just,
And that's okay.
it just totally depends,
Even
like, I
3
don't want,
weeks,
I wouldn't
4
want, I
weeks.
wouldn't, but 4 weeks we're back to a council meeting.
But if I'm looking online, we don't have the minutes from March up, right? So
That's
then
me.
No, but that's not sure. That's just saying that if we put the draft up, then it's not really as urgent now, is it? Like we're not,
Right.
we're not
This,
that far.
this
behind.
does sound like something that we should talk about
Yeah,
in
in
the
a management
management meeting, because
Yeah.
we're squirreled away from,
So
where
can
we
I
are
ask-
here
Not
on
that.
page 6, yeah.
So the consent section though, we're talking about the minutes and that, we might do something with that. The reports, the permit applications, correspond, like permit applications, there's no reason why that can't. Do we put them to the public?
No,
You know,
Is there a reason why?
I don't know.
because it's got personal information on
There's
it,
personal information on the.
Oh, yeah.
house.
their address and their
Yeah, how much
name,
they're spending on
you'd have to
stuff.
redact everything,
Yeah.
put it up, and it
It
would,
could be a black mark, it could be a page with a bunch of black on it.
Yeah.
Good point.
Then it wouldn't be anything, so
Yeah.
if it was all redacted, there wouldn't be much there.
So
there's a house
is
being
there,
built and-
no, but people want us to, like, they wanna know everything.
Well, they-
So, and even correspondence. So if we just consent to that, then we don't
don't-
have
we don't.
anything then,
This is where you can bring it up in the councillor comments.
Or
So
you
I
can bring
think
it up
that's
on
so
the
important to have there.
business arising from consent section.
so to that effect,
Yeah.
yeah.
last night with the dogs and the off-leash,
Off-leash.
Okay, right.
there was no discussion on that.
No,
So,
but on the agenda it
but-
says, right?
it does, but what I'm saying is, so if there's something like that, that goes in this consent section,
Yeah.
right? It's in there, so are you guys gonna determine prior to even coming to the meeting, you're gonna be pulling that out to talk about it?
That's what I'm wondering, or is, if there's going to be ones that we need to authorize and direct you to do something with.
Right, that's what I'm thinking, right? Like, it has to be, you guys are gonna have to know well in advance what you're doing to pull that out, because if not, you'll just sweep it all, and then we'll have no resolution to the correspondence.
That's why we're supposed to either have it by the again, that's, the dog leash thing is an emergency, so either, if we don't have it the Wednesday before, we follow our own rules, it's gotta wait till the next month to discuss it.
Right, but that we had in advance,
Yeah.
that one, yeah.
So is this why some municipalities then have the Wednesday before, instead of an actual, like a management session, they do council and committee? Everything is there for council that week prior to. So then they can make the decision whether that's all going in the consent section.
It could very well be, yeah.
I don't know.
That's another way to look at it.
That's another way of looking at it, yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to bring up one other point here, when we keep talking about this, the deadline for receiving agenda materials to the clerk is 3 p.m. That does not mean you have until people have until 3 p.m. Does not mean that you are going to receive it from the clerk to look at 3 p.m. a week ahead. That's even before the management session, that's before anything. So is everybody, are we clear on that? So this is exactly what it says, the materials go to the clerk by 3 p.m.
Yeah, yours will go out Friday.
Yeah, so we wouldn't
You'll have
it
the stuff
anyway, so,
Friday.
yeah.
But we've got to give her time to do
Yeah.
it.
Well, that's right, but I mean, everyone's
So-
jumping on the fact that we're gonna have, suddenly you're gonna have all this stuff at 3 p.m. the week before.
Well, then, yeah, unless it's an
Not.
emergency, we'd have to push it to the next month to discuss it if we wanted
No,
to.
but I'm saying, it's not going to get you, it's to the clerk, it's not from the clerk.
Right,
Yeah, so you can bring stuff in till 3 p.m. and you're still not going to get it until Friday or
Friday.
whatever the day,
right,
the day of Friday of the day, week before.
okay, yes.
That deadline is more for me, so that I get the materials by 3 p.m. on Wednesday, so that I can then produce the package and get it ready to send to you. I don't want to be doing it at 3
I'm not
o'clock on
questioning that,
Friday.
I'm
Yeah,
where are you going with that? Who's
Yeah.
So I was
the
just
director
wondering,
of that?
because everyone was saying we want our stuff by 3 p.m. on Wednesday, before so we can study it.
No, that's
That's
not
not
what
what I
I'm
was saying.
No,
That isn't what I meant.
No.
I'm very happy with it on Friday.
Me too.
But if she doesn't get it by 3 p.m. on Wednesday, it's a.
then I just won't send it.
Then I
I'll
can-
just hold it and
it
know
would
for
have
the
to wait
next
till
week.
next month, yeah.
I mean, you can make your own exceptions as you need to.
Right.
Okay, so is there anything else with page 6, then if we go page 7?
Councillor comments though, is that something we're discussing at management session, or are we agreeing? How is that working?
That was
I thought we
Councillor
already
Peck's.
discussed it last week, didn't we? Or last month, yeah, last
We
week.
didn't ever decide.
No,
Okay, so present your thoughts.
Again, okay. So, there are municipalities who, Harvey is one, York, Carlton, no, not York, Carlton North. They don't want to call
Moncton
York.
has one.
So, in this section, councillors are encouraged to share what they've been doing. If you don't want to share, you just say, I have nothing this month. If you want to share, you can pick and choose things that you would like to share. You can think of it as sharing with your colleagues here at the table, or sharing with the audience of our residents and beyond. Really important people listen to us, you know. And it is a way for residents to have more of a sense of what we are doing each month. It could be where we talk about communication we've had, verbal, over the phone, or through a direct email to us as individuals that the resident chose not to send it through to the clerk or CAO.
Let me add to that very quickly, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but it's important to note that we have to be under confidentiality. You can't
Yes.
disclose resident identities, so this would have to be announced.
Right.
Sorry.
The main purpose is for residents here, to get more of a sense of what we're doing. Because I've tried, and it's just because I like to talk that I wasn't able to do it. I could sit through an entire council meeting and not say a word. I could raise my hand, although I know I'm supposed to say yay or nay for a motion vote. And really, I've had people say to me they try to listen to the meeting audio tape, and because they don't recognize voices and we seldom say who we are before we speak, they can't follow. So this would be a dedicated session where the chair would say, Councillor Fox,
Yeah,
Councillor
just go around the
Heisler."
table. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good idea, and just for reference too, the deck does this too, so they go around basically all the different zones, what's happening in your zone right now, whatever type of things.
I adore it.
I think it's a good idea. So.
Yeah, I think it's great, so I can bring up concerns from residents that they've contacted me with.
Yeah, or
As long as I
projects you're working
maintain
on, stuff like that.
confidentiality, it's all good.
Yeah, just an update, just maintain confidentiality.
Perfect.
Yeah. Like, don't worry.
If you don't wanna say anything,
Yeah, yeah, you don't feel obligated to have to do it, but it'd be nice to just let people know what you think is going on.
Okay.
Cool. And it counts for, includes the mayor, obviously, of course, too, if you want to, but we usually have the mayor's report anyway in a separate report for stuff like that. So. All right, so page 7. I just added in, the committee reports shall not be read, but shall be posted to the Hamilton Red website.
And the video, you should probably put, and audio recording.
audio.
Oh, yeah, okay. With the audio recordings. Right, I forgot that. And I don't know why I did that in a different color, I must have just not been wearing my glasses and time when I clicked on that. Emergency meeting, we just clarified, pulled a section of the Emergency Act, or defined that it's in the Emergencies Act. Probably should have put the specific section, but at least just saying where it's coming from. Any other questions for page 7?
Just for the new folks, there's no such thing in the Local Governance Act for an emergency meeting, but we have it in our own because they don't speak to it. Because sometimes we have to have a meeting due to an emergency. It could be a big fire, like, you know.
It's actually defined in the Emergency Act, that's why I put it in there.
Yeah.
It's not a Local Governance Act, but it is the Emergency Act. And it becomes complicated because there's all these different acts that all say things. And I think that may have been part of the idea of, with the procedural bylaws, that we sort out everybody else's stuff into why we're doing these things.
Yeah.
So it's, it's not in the LGA, but it's in the EMA, so.
And it's just, like I said, it's an emergency, so we cannot get advance notice of it.
Yeah.
So,
Page 7, page 8, has a whole bunch of stuff on. Oh, that's the management. So, now that we're here at section H, do we want to change that to council and committee meeting? So it's defining that it is still a council meeting, but your attendance isn't technically required at it, because it's not a regular meeting.
But you would still have to have, but council and committee meetings, everyone I've looked at though, now that I think about it, they have minutes, right?
Nope, so your council and committee meetings are not required to that, they can choose to do it.
Maryland doesn't either.
No,
Thought they did.
no, it's only required to be notes.
Okay, but
You can if you want, but it's up to
I don't
you.
know, we've never done a council and committee, so I'm assuming it's up to us which way we wanna do it.
and it's up to us what we want to call it. Some
Yeah.
people call it COC, we used to call it info session, now we call it management session, call it whatever you want. But we need that meeting, because we tried it without it,
And it didn't
and we'll
work
see
for
what
us.
happened.
Yeah, and council and committee though, the chair would be you.
Yeah,
You would chair it.
Yeah,
that's right,
So
that's the big difference.
that would be the big
It wouldn't be
difference.
staff chairing it, it would be
No.
the mayor.
Yeah, definitely.
But then you could turn it over to staff. I mean, staff are the ones who have the information, they're the ones providing the information.
That's right.
So
Oh,
we,
yeah, that-
right, and so we would know, you would no longer get that big long sheet. You wouldn't get those notes, because you'd have to do an agenda. Like we're going back to just having another
Yeah,
council meeting.
I
So you'd
think
have
we
your
should
set
just
agenda.
Stick the way we are, it's working.
Yeah.
Wouldn't the agenda be, isn't that what our management sessions, it says agenda?
Yeah, it
And then
literally
it
does
just-
have the list on it.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to be an agenda like this with, it's basically just a list of items for the agenda.
So we could, so I guess, yeah,
That report that goes out with the great long list, 42, was so helpful to me this past week or last week, I've lost track of the days, when I wasn't able to be here at 6. And I could consult that to
it's,
see.
no, it's helpful, but that's not something we can just provide to the public. Like, that's not
No.
a document. So if we go this route, then I'll be doing minutes twice a month, which is fine if that's how we're gonna do it. But, yeah, just,
Are the notes, so we wouldn't put the notes on the website?
I don't think we would, no. Like, 40 pages on the website, like, I don't,
I'll say, here's the trick too, so almost everything that's in that document is operational, which is why we're trying
Right.
to call it an operational or management meeting. So now
we're mixing the
this
two.
is-
We're blurring
This is
the
what we're
lines.
concerned
Yes.
about. Now we're getting back into legislation versus operations.
Right.
Yeah.
And we can't break that.
And that's all,
We can't.
that management sheet is all operations,
all
it's
operational.
updating you on what's been happening.
So it's gonna be a short agenda, or be a duplicate of the,
Well, I don't understand why, just for the sake of changing things, we need to change it. The thing is working the way it is. I mean, there's nothing wrong with
What
this
we're doing.
document, the way we've had it, having administration and management. I mean, if we need to do a different policy on that, then fine. But I mean, we keep screwing around with this forever.
yeah.
And it's worked well since, 2014, and I don't know why we have to keep, every time we turn around, keep wanting to change it. But
Because we want to separate operations
But why do we need to
and
separate?
governance.
Why do we-
It's, well, we keep saying.
It should
we
be
need-
separated.
It should be separated
Councillor Fox,
Well, I would suggest we just take it out
and do a
and
put it in
different
the
we
policy.
create a separate
Yeah,
policy,
I think
just,
so.
just short like this.
yeah, very easy, and it'd give you a short, policies don't have to 10 pages
No,
long,
it
they can be very
can
small.
literally be this.
Yep, very easy.
Example.
We take that soon? We could do that soon?
This is all, these are minor changes, I can probably have most of this by the end of the day tomorrow, or the worst case, by the end of the day Sunday.
And if this is all the policy is, if it's just this,
And that's not very difficult.
No, it wouldn't take very long.
It's called cut and paste.
Pretty much, yeah,
Management meeting policy, then that's what we'll call it.
Yeah.
yes, I love the idea, well done,
Yeah, I do too.
beautiful, easy enough. Okay. That's page 8, page 9, oh, I didn't change anything now, okay? Page 10 had no changes, page 11, J, K, and L. So we're, this is for discussion, I suppose, tonight for consensus around the table.
Where are we?
The thought, J, K, and L of the,
Page
part 5, so we're on page 11.
11? Okay.
Including the mayor now to vote. What is the thought around that? So some thought that we had was, at least at the committee, was if the mayor is elected, they probably should vote. Previously, in the Local Governance Act, it specifically called out that the mayor would vote to break a tie. The new version of the Local Governance Act does not say that.
Last time I read it, it said it's up to council to determine whether they want the mayor to vote or not.
That is correct, yeah. That's the way it's currently worded now.
Yeah.
And I don't know why we're changing it. To me, it's been working very well as it is. And it makes the mayor's job, if you're only voting to break the ties, it means it's an important decision. And therefore the mayor, it goes to the mayor.
So, and this is another reason that we would have, if we do follow this, okay, let me, one thing I thought, and then I'll get right to you, Councillor Fox. And if we do this, we will have to go back to Robert's Rules of Order as a guide. Because Robert's Rules of Order, the chair only votes to break a tie or to create a tie to break a vote, basically, to make a vote fail. That's what Robert's Rules of Order says explicitly, in the old version and in the new Rules of Order. So if we do this, we have to just say that we're using Robert's Rules as a guide. If we go back, do it the way we were doing it, we can still say we're following Robert's Rules of Order.
But we've put in as a guide in both of those places.
We took them both out, actually, tonight, we
Yes,
took
we
them
did.
both out, yeah.
We said, we're putting it as the guide.
The guide,
The guide.
Councillor Fox.
So I did some research on this just to see what happens across the country
Yeah.
with this. And in every province that by my research, every province allows the mayor to vote with the exception of PEI. So that's the only place where the mayor doesn't. Mayor is considered to be a councillor, but also the head of council, and therefore has a vote.
And New Brunswick.
What's that?
And New Brunswick. The only place that does is the PEI and New Brunswick.
And
New Brunswick.
Well,
New Brunswick doesn't, the legislation has changed, it doesn't say that you can't vote.
No, it says, the legislation hasn't changed. It says it's up to council to have
Actually,
the
it has
mayor vote
changed.
or
It did
not.
change.
Previously, it said that the mayor would only vote to break the tie. Some
Right.
municipalities didn't follow they're not following regulations, they weren't following, but they're
They're-
compliant now.
They're taking the choice as to whether they want.
But they didn't, if you follow it to the letter of the law, they didn't have the choice previously. Because the law was written at the time based on Robert's Rules of Order, one of the few things that they actually did follow. But now they changed it, so.
Yeah, so just to, if I can continue with my point.
Sure.
So the point being that this is common practice across the country, it's everywhere. The only place I could find that specifically says that it's to break a tie is PEI. Everywhere else, and I checked a number of municipalities in different provinces as well, and it's right in there. To me, the mayor's elected. The mayor's elected by the population. The mayor is a part of council. Mayor's the head of council, but should also be able to vote. Like, to me, it's never made any sense that the mayor's not been able to vote.
So I think
I'm highly in favor.
the reason I think that it's defined like that in the rules of order is because it can technically create a conflict. That if the mayor is gonna be, always has their own vote on it, rather than to break it in a specific situation, it completely changes the dynamic of whether the person is chairing or now just sitting on the board. And that's a little different. Sorry, go ahead.
That was actually gonna be my point, is, and I'm gonna actually respect what the worship wants when we're done this, as far as I'm concerned. But my argument against, and by the way, it's a good argument, I agree with you, Councilor Fox, but the whole theory is I don't want the chair who's trying to keep order to have skin in the game. They should be able to break the tie when needed. That's how Fredericton does it, that's how, I just wanna make sure that there's.
That's how Lord Muckle does it, that's how Meriden does it.
That's right.
Just
Fredericton
for my 2
does it.
cents worth, I like it the way it is.
So then I'll be going whatever you say at the end of the day, that's how I'll go with it, because you're the mayor, but at the same time, I think it's about keeping decorum, it's about me not thinking you have skin in the game, how's it going, trying to keep the room fair, and then you get to call balls and strikes when we tie, and that's why I'm for it.
Okay, so I'm gonna go to Councilor Heist to move along with this. I'm gonna go to Councilor Heist, then I'm gonna poll the room.
Okay,
So,
so
final
I agree. I think that we've been doing it this way for a lot of reasons. The mayor, to me, is supposed to remain a little bit more partial and, impartial and neutral and all that stuff. It also will create problems if we need 2/3 majority. If he's voting, and if we need a 2/3 majority, and
It changes the
it
numbers.
changes the numbers and everything, so I don't know if we wanna go there. Right
think-
now, I'm going with leaving it the way it is.
Okay, okay, go ahead. One last final thought, then I'll hold on.
Councillor Mackenzie, on page 1 in definitions, it
Yes.
says council means the mayor and councillors of the rural community of Panwell.
Yes.
On page 11, where we are talking now, it says all council mayors, including the mayor, but council means the mayor and councillors.
I think it's for further
So we've got
clarification.
some language there that would need, if we vote to stay the way we are,
Right.
we would need to say councillors, by definition, are all members of council other than the mayor.
Yeah, we
You wouldn't
probably
have
change
to.
it.
Yeah.
I'm a member of council, but I'm not a councillor.
Right.
That's right.
So
That's the difference.
That's why you'd have all councillors shall vote on a motion,
We would
which is
take
not,
it-
take out including the mayor.
That's all, yeah. We would revert back to the way it was. I
Yeah.
know it may seem
All
confusing, but
council
that's just the way it's
members.
defined in governance, is that we're councillors. He's in part of council,
Yes,
but he's not a councillor.
I've always thought of him that way, but this definition on page 1 is just a
No.
little wonky for that. Council means the mayor and councillors.
Yeah, but that's
That's
council.
council.
That is
Yeah,
council.
That's
If you're a
council.
member of council,
But-
then
but it's not a
you
council.
But you're not a councillor.
I'm a member of council, but I'm not a councillor. I'm the mayor. The deputy mayor is a member of council. She's a councillor. She's also the deputy mayor. She wears 2 hats. Anyway, why don't you
So,
call the room?
I'm gonna poll the room, so keep the way it is?
Yes,
Same?
yes.
No, not a chance this time.
I'm gonna go you for a
No, I don't have a vote. I didn't bring it back.
No, we don't.
You don't have.
Councillor Peck.
Oh, this is just too hard.
No, yeah, it's not that hard. I'm happy with the way it was. It made sense. It follows what the
I'm the
majority of.
same.
And I agree too, that I think it should be the way it was, keep it the same way it was.
I think keep the same way, I like the fact of a tiebreaker, somebody being a tiebreaker.
Last vote.
I agree with all of you.
There you go.
Sorry, Councillor Fox, you didn't get your way.
But it also
Right,
protects
exactly.
the mayor and the public, by the way, so you're not in a skin, you know what I mean? So you're not getting attacked by the public. This is what council is, you just explain the thing and it's not you personally. You
And
know?
and you had to
I wouldn't
come
go.
on the
I wouldn't go as far as to say
scales.
that.
Fair deal, touche,
Well, yeah,
touche,
if
touche.
he speaks on behalf of council, but
But not
he's now
himself,
voting
right?
as council.
That's the
That's the
point.
point.
So including the mayor's coming out.
yeah, I'll revert
All
that.
that red comes out.
Councillor Mackenzie,
Yes.
back on page 10,
Yes.
under 5, no, sorry, Number 10, so we're not there yet.
Okay, yeah,
Darren?
Sorry.
yes.
So quickly, page 9, under meeting curfew.
Meeting,
Curfew, J, meeting curfew,
J.
it says.
Yeah.
G-G-H-I-J, yes.
So just the, when at any meeting of the council, can we just put when at any meeting
Of
of
council.
council? Not the.
Oh, yeah, I don't know what that is. Okay, yeah,
Just,
that's,
sorry.
that's a typo, yeah.
Okay, moving on, sorry guys.
Got it. Okay, can we go to the next page then?
Where are we? had to
Points
start
and
well.
orders,
Last
privilege.
clusters, no page number.
Nothing actually changed in this page.
Number 12.
And by the way, just because nothing changed doesn't mean that
You
I
can't
don't have
change
a typo or something in there or grammatical.
I know,
looked
but-
at it very closely.
Okay.
I read it.
In section 8, taking out everything in red.
Debbie, did you have something?
No,
this
I'm
topic?
on number 10. I
We're not there
was-
yet.
Okay,
Okay.
7, right? Confidentiality, A, B, C.
See, yeah.
So, he says, where is it? Representatives to express their opinion and position in public. The policy is adopted to foster the thorough investigation. What policy are we talking about?
I don't know. The procedure to follow is to,
Yeah.
I just wasn't sure,
I don't know. This has been there since 2014.
I know, so I'm like, what policy are we talking about?
I don't know.
I've got a headache, so
Is it-
I'm
is
now-
it-
I'm now like,
I'd have to
Is
go
there a
look at
policy on confidentiality?
I'd have to go look at all the policies.
oh, I just made a note, what are we talking about?
I don't know where my keys
The procedural
I don't think we have,
policy?
we do not have a policy that I'm aware of on
On confidentiality.
confidentiality.
No, we don't.
Okay, so that, we need to change that.
To what?
Is that supposed to be this bylaw
I don't.
Yeah.
is adopted to foster?
Maybe it should say, it said, this bylaw is adopted to foster the thorough investigation.
how about is meant to? Instead of adopted, because
Right.
you adopt minutes and
This-
adopt.
This bylaw is meant.
Where are you? Confidentiality.
7(3).
C.
To foster the thorough investigation.
The policy is adopted to foster the thorough investigation.
That should be changed to this bylaw is meant.
to foster the.
Why not just say it is adopted? Just take the policy out and put it, meaning the
Yeah, well,
the
we
We don't
bylaw.
have a
You
policy.
don't have a policy, so it's this bylaw
Is meant.
how about intended instead of meant?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can you talk
Intended to foster the thorough investigation.
getting-
Yep.
I have a long.
This is gonna be a marathon session, we're not stopping tonight till we get through all four. But
What?
hopefully the last,
No, we're not.
hopefully the last,
I'm
I am,
leaving.
Wow.
hopefully the last two though, if everyone has read them, shouldn't have any changes to them, and I'm gonna explain why when we get to it. I'm, If
I
you
know.
disagree with it,
Well, let's
the
get
time to
through.
disagree with it in whole is when it comes up for a vote at the meeting.
Perfect.
Yes,
That's what I was gonna say.
that's right.
To give you a chance to
Let's,
say that, yeah.
let's finish this one up.
Let's
over-
finish this up and
yeah.
we'll quickly go through the other two and I'll explain why.
Okay, 9.
9, committees, so E, the reason I had in where technically feasible, and I'm taking it out now, is because we didn't have the logistics, after we talked about recording, audio recordings, the logistics were not set out yet, but I have since met with Sherry and we have figured out a way to do it.
Can we talk about something again? Policy also comes up in E.
E,
Where?
7E. I think they're talking, it should say bylaw.
This bylaw.
this bylaw.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not
that's
I wonder
policy.
why we said policy there.
Was this,
Wonder if it used to be.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't,
No, it's been here since
It
2014.
was a mistake from the get-go.
Yeah, mistake from day one.
I don't know.
Yeah, 'cause it's not a policy.
So, back down to 8,
8, we're just referring to the
9.
code of conduct bylaw.
9.
9 is
Oh,
the
9, you're
recordings.
gonna have to change though, Darren.
What's that?
9C, the CAO may
Yep.
oversee operational
Oh,
committees,
yeah.
right?
No,
Then he or she, we don't have operational committees.
no, but they may make it.
But it's
We
not,
don't-
but
But
remember,
it's
this
not
is
part
not
of
part of
council.
council.
Okay, just take it out then?
Yeah.
Okay. Gone.
taking out all of C?
I'll see you.
Again, committee put pretty, oh, never mind, forget it.
Okay, and
Policy, should policy be lowercase or is it uppercase?
Lowercase,
Lowercase.
unless you're referring to the actual policy.
Committee proceedings, conduct, dictated by policy.
Okay, and there's anything else for that page? Almost through.
You've dropped, I assume you dropped when technically feasible,
The dropping, we're technically feasible because we figured out the logistics for it.
right? Okay,
So
good.
Darren, the one thing, I've noted it here, I don't know where it should be noted. I just have a question. Where do we, in this bylaw, have anything about being able to add committees or get rid of committees? Because I noted it, I think Fredericton has something in theirs about
Right.
doing that, but we don't have anything. So
Well, it
it's,
does, it says ad hoc committees may be added for special purposes and are not intended to be permanent.
but that's an ad hoc committee. What if we wanted a standing committee or a,
Then it would be just an update to the committee policy. That's why we have a policy for that, not a bylaw. The bylaw should very rarely change.
exactly.
So,
But it's changed a lot.
yeah, but that's why we're defining in what the committee
So
would
then
be.
you've gotta put it in your committee policy then,
Yeah.
about adding or
Deleting.
deleting committees.
Well, in G here, the committee policy shall list the current committees of council and may add committees and also include operational committees. It's
No, what I should pull that down,
Operational
that
committees
one's out, yeah.
It's gone,
But
but you should
Shall
say in may add or delete committees as
put it right in
council,
there.
as
in G.
May
council
have-
decides.
may have committees added or removed as required.
Or as decided by council.
Would be decided by council.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's freezing in here.
I have something in number 10.
Okay, almost there, just wait a minute, very slow writer. COUNCI. Okay, 10, yes.
10D,
Yes?
make an appointment with the clerk. This is just, I'm flogging a dead horse about materials and matters being available to council in proper time to consider them. So it says, any person, association, organization, or other body wishing to address council shall make an appointment with the clerk at least 3 calendar days before the close of the agenda. So if we want to hear from a proponent of some matter being brought, and it's not on the agenda, here's just another way that we in the past decided appointments had to be made to be able to speak. So I don't want to change it, I just want us to remember that we have bylaws to follow for people speaking to council at regular council meetings.
Well,
Any-
so just a quick note on that, so sorry, let me interrupt, but it is of critical importance, I think, that, so in our public input inquiry session, there's no restrictions on that, on our agenda. Someone can just show up right out of the blue and talk about something, but if they want, there can be no expectation of a response from council at that. If a response is requested, they would need to make an appointment.
Does that say that here?
No.
No, it
Comes
does
to
not.
the,
So
it's the
how would
presentation
we
stuff, the intended.
link the two for clarity?
For example,
It's-
Carl Dyvenvorden wants to come in June. He has made an appointment to come and talk about whatever, to do his road cleanup or whatever he wants to talk about.
Right.
Therefore, he is on the agenda as a presentation. Those are to be booked at least 10 days in advance.
Yes.
This is a totally different line item than the public input.
So we should have wishing to make a presentation to council rather than address council.
Appearing before
Yeah.
council, or, yeah, it should be changed.
That would clarify
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So any person associated with wishing to appear before
No, till
council?
make
To make
a presentation to
Oh, wishing
council.
to make a presentation to
Yeah.
council.
And then that would jive with that
Yeah.
previous one. And in E,
Yes,
it's
You can talk great.
Mm.
Yeah. No.
and E, yeah.
It's the 10 minutes. This is where things get tricky. I don't know, we've had times in my short tenure where the presentation went much longer than 10 minutes. And how do we deal with that?
No, one's a presentation, and the other one that's the public input one.
Yeah. 10 minutes
Don't
per
confuse the two. C or D is a better presentation. E is the 10-minute one we have for somebody to speak to council.
So, like Bernadine Boucher
Yeah, it wasn't a
this time-
presentation.
Wasn't a presentation. it
Okay,
was
so
just-
she can speak for 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, okay.
And we don't
so
usually
how do we-
enforce that rule.
No.
It's there, but if somebody's speaking and they're on a roll and they go 12, 13 minutes, we're not standing there at the stopwatch.
No, we're not looking at it.
If they go on and on and on and you're sitting there saying, mm-hmm,
They rarely
sorry,
do.
your 10 minutes
We
is
take a
rarely
up.
call for it. It's-
I think the intent of this, though, was, unless it's a presentation, like I know we've had presentations in the past from, engineers and whatever, we've let them go longer, but generally if it's just, someone coming in to talk about, for example, we had long in that time, the road, the guy who was doing the road race there,
Yeah,
he went on way too long, and
Yeah.
and he should have only had his 10 minutes, but we did,
Wasn't that a presentation though?
that was a presentation.
Yeah, so that's not limited to 10 minutes.
No, we should, at some point, we
I
should have
think
said, this
presentations were
is,
supposed to be limited to 10 minutes.
Is there something against
nothing.
limiting a presentation to a certain time period? Like,
there's nothing written to do.
I believe it said in there was 10 minutes per, so you could have two groups, two people in the thing, so it's
No,
20
that's-
minutes.
Delegations,
That's,
yeah.
that's
delegation.
One's a presentation though, one is comments to council for one of a better, whatever
No,
the term
but
is.
there's another one that said delegations, so
Yeah,
but that's
there's
in-
delegations of more than.
So you can call that a delegation.
But that's in with the 10-minute thing we have, like when Bernadine spoke last night.
No,
that-
that's the
No,
public input.
not, that's
That's
not.
So the
No,
delegation
that's
says you
right.
can have up to two people, up, if there's 5 people, it's,
That's right, so D is just somebody,
that's right.
I
So
think-
they
I
get
think-
10 minutes.
I think it's flipped, I think
I think the D is for the presentation.
Yeah,
D,
D is presentation, as far as I'm concerned.
No, yeah, which
Yeah.
are scheduled presentations.
yeah, because it has to be in advance. You can't just
Yeah.
show up and make a
Making an
That's
presentation.
right.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what you make
Right.
a point of. The other we added on several years later, because we didn't have public input at first, when we first became
Yeah.
council in 2014.
But that's basically, E is basically your public input.
Well,
No.
it can't be,
No.
no,
You use your presentations.
because it says if a delegation consists of more than
Yeah.
5 people,
Right.
Yeah, if you
it may
have,
be represented by 2, and they can both
Yeah.
speak for 10 minutes.
if you want to have a long presentation like the lady we had with their food cycle
Yeah,
up here.
but that was a presentation.
That's a presentation, but that's not a presentation at council, that was a presentation of someone who wants to come to, we've done it frequently.
Oh, yeah.
People want to come to the management meeting, that would be the management meeting, same as when we were talking to,
Marion McIntyre.
Yeah, and Fred
Now,
agrees
there,
always.
they were a presentation.
yeah, and those
And
you
that
have
one
at the
could have been
management
at
meetings,
council,
they
but
could
we
be
thought it
half an
better
hour,
to
you
have
a
it at our
meeting
management
just on their presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have your opportunity for long
Hey, Sherry,
presentations.
sorry?
so back to my question, is there anything saying we can't limit the time limit on a presentation?
Absolutely.
Like, could we not say that, and
You've only got
that would be
20
me,
minutes
that would be
tops.
me, because I'm the one who
Well,
takes the presentation, and
yes,
could I not
right.
say, we have to limit the presentations to 10 minutes?
Right,
Or 15
whatever,
minutes?
whatever you want.
I just think
to
that
be
maybe that
honest.
should be, so they know.
Almost nine.
Yeah, well, this is what it speaks to here, is that they have 10 minutes.
It's 9:05.
Yeah, well,
For
don't
20
worry, we're
minutes,
not gonna be much
very
longer.
much to
Tim?
people.
So just,
So,
Sorry, Tim first.
I've always been confused between the presentation versus the folks. who
Petitions.
speak.
Public input.
Right, that's always caused me some confusion. And I guess that, part of that comes from my history as a municipal employee, in a different province, mind you. But, where anyone who wanted to come to council had to provide notice and would just, which was fine, but they would, and that's when they were given and told how much time they had. And they would come, and whether it was comments, whether it was a presentation, it was all done under one section, and everybody had the same amount of time. And I believe it was limited to 10 minutes. So even if it was a presentation, you had to kind of cut to the chase and deliver what you, because most people can say what they need to say within 10 minutes. I'm fine with it remaining this way, but it still just causes me confusion, because I still see it as essentially the same thing. Maybe
It is.
slightly different purposes, but.
It is, except one is scheduled, and the other is.
Right, and
Yeah.
I feel as though,
Well, maybe if somebody wants to address council, they should schedule it.
Really, it'd be easier, I mean,
well, council can do its best work when we know what's coming.
Right.
And by scheduling it, that gives us time to prepare. I
Exactly.
don't think it's unreasonable to ask everyone to do it.
Councillor Sapp?
The difference I see it, in my humble opinion, is for instance when you had the Yoho, I shouldn't say you, sorry, Deputy Mayor, but when the Yoho people showed up about the park, we got to ask them questions. That's what a presentation is. We don't necessarily ask questions of people with comments and stuff like this.
That's correct.
That's the
really
difference.
fundamental difference, in my humble opinion, of what it is.
Good point.
And I'm prepared to, like, okay, it's going to be a presentation on this, now I can prepare, and I can do my research to prepare for that. I can't prepare for comments somebody in the public's making.
That is
I
true.
just humanly can't, and that's the difference in my humble opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry.
And we, go ahead.
And then I think it's important then that those comments be comments and not be questions. I think if people are gonna be asking questions during that period, it's only fair that we get those questions ahead and be able to prepare a response to them.
Yeah, so actually, if we follow it by the book, technically, then when someone is speaking, and for example, they dead up ask the mayor for a question, he can call a point of order on that.
Yeah.
And say, you're out of order, you can't do that.
Just submit your questions to the clerk and we'll get back to you.
Yeah, this is another thing that we just haven't enforced, but he does have the authority to do
Because
that.
it is awful hard to answer a question sometimes on the fly, you don't know what's coming at you. And you really shouldn't,
Blindsided,
because
no.
that's when you put your foot in your mouth.
Well, that's why I think originally we had thought that if they were going to ask questions or whatever, it could only be on agenda items so that we had
Right.
information then, and
Yeah.
it was, you know,
But
right
it's
there
just too
and
limiting
clear.
to do that. There's
Exactly.
things that can come up.
So then it was, we kind of changed it, and so, yeah, so there's no way, if they could bring up something.
We could
That we
caution
have
them
no idea.
when they're here, when it's time, when we have we have somebody that wants to make comments. If you have questions in your comments, please submit your questions to the clerk, and we can't answer them tonight.
Yeah.
We could say that before they even start, so they
Well,
would know.
on the first one where people do just come in, we've never answered questions. I mean, it's
No.
always
No.
just been a comment.
Yeah,
You
but
go make your
I
comment.
did when they were asked, and I shouldn't have.
No, you shouldn't.
No.
No, that's, it says right
Or
on it.
unless you want to. I
No,
think you
but I
can.
definitely shouldn't. It's not a good idea to try to answer questions
No,
on the
it-
fly, because you have no
Comments.
idea what's coming at you.
So can we set a time frame for presentations, only because we have them coming?
10 minutes.
So
seems
it'll be 10 is the
reasonable.
same, okay.
Same thing?
So you wanna put that
I
in there
would say
then?
so.
I think 10 is plenty.
I think that's
So,
reasonable.
so attendee presentations limited to 10 minutes?
10 minutes.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, not that we've had very many presentations lately, I think Carl's probably the first one we've had in a long time. We should limit it to how many presentations you're gonna have in the evening,
There should be one,
one probably.
really one per evening, I
And
think
it's
is probably
scheduled,
plenty.
so sorry, this presentation, this time is already allotted to so-and-so, so,
Well, if they want, they can
schedule
do
next
it at
month.
some other meeting.
That's
right, yeah.
Or submit something in writing.
Exactly.
There's ways around it, but like I said, one presentation per meeting.
I would say, yeah, one is fine with me, I would say a maximum of 2, but.
Okay, so I think we're set on that, I'll update it, basically presentations limited, sorry, so
Yeah.
limited to 10 minutes, but with the possibility of being extended by the chair. Yeah, we
Yeah,
have to have a little
something
bit of discretion,
Yeah,
extended by the
something
discretion of
interesting
the
that we
chair.
wanna know.
Sure.
Yeah.
That
If it's a really keen presentation there, everybody's,
hear all
this
of
is great, and,
Yeah.
like
Okay,
the garbage can one.
So 10A,
Yeah.
you note all regular and special meetings of council are open to the public,
Yeah,
but all meetings are
So just put
open,
all meetings.
all meetings in,
right? Are open to the public.
yeah, got it, yeah.
Okay, so then, we're on to news meeting.
11, anything else on this page?
11C, I did have a question.
Sure.
So it says that we can prevent any news media person from doing a broadcast of the
Correct.
proceedings of council?
Yeah.
What exactly do you mean? Because I've been told that, no, it's illegal for anyone to record our meetings due to the one-party consent rule in Canada.
Yeah, they can record it, but they can't rebroadcast it. If you record something and put it on, I don't think that you can do that.
This is a public domain.
So yeah, these are public meetings, so I just wanted clarification that what we're saying is they can't rebroadcast. Is that what you're trying to say?
That's what we're trying to say, yeah.
I don't think it's recording them, period.
No, they're
Well, they're allowed
allowed.
to record it, that's for sure, yeah.
They're
But
allowed to
but I
record
don't-
it.
I think that because they could run into concerns. The problem with rebroadcasting something without being vetted first is there could be privacy violations in there, especially from someone that might be speaking.
But that's on them, right?
That's a closed session, guys.
But that's a public meeting, still.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want us to make sure that that's
Can we
correct.
go to ask legal about that? That's the one question, 11C.
Yeah,
Would you be able to reach out to legal
I
to see
feel
if?
more comfortable with that.
But we certainly, any member of the public that sits there can record our meetings.
Yes, we're gonna ask legal. Yes, they can record it,
That,
but it's
is
the
a
question of
given.
rebroadcast.
so
That
we
is a
can't
given.
tell people that they cannot record because they can.
Yeah.
That's the only other one.
Okay, and there's nothing changed in the last page. Oh, there is something changed. It's just, it's for the signings. The CAO, treasurer, and clerk, and sign jointly with the clerk for agreements. And that's it for that. Now, just a couple more minutes, everyone's time. I promise this won't take too long. The code of conduct and the conflict and complaint resolution policy, I want to address both of these together. So, a bit of a back history of this for the councilors that are new that don't know how we got to this point now. So, in fact, I wrote some of this down. Let me just read this. So, after the Municipalities Act was replaced with the Local Governance Act in 2017, the new act defined in section 10.2 that a local government shall make bylaws be established in the code of conduct for members of council prescribed or regulation. Our initial code of conduct bylaw was largely taken from another existing municipality within New Brunswick. I can't recall which one it was. I think it was Sackville, actually. And at that time, we didn't put a lot of focus, a lot of attention on it because we naively assumed it was unlikely to ever be used. Unfortunately, not long after that, it was used for the first time. After an investigation of that person by council, a breach was determined to have occurred. Sanctions were issued to the respondent, and unfortunately, much like today, these sanctions were completely ignored. After it was determined that we needed more help with the Code of Conduct bylaw, it was sent to our legal team to be rewritten. Large portions of it were rewritten, and they informed us that it would be best to break the actual investigation and sanctions portion off into a policy, as a policy would be easier to correct in the event it was needed to do so. So the splitting off of the policy was under the recommendation and review of legal. There is nothing in the existing bylaw that locks the current version of either outside of the standard process of bylaw amendment, which is 3 readings, and a policy update, which is a single motion. Section 17F in particular states, complaints shall be dealt with by council in accordance with the process set out in the conflict and complaint resolution policy. The current bylaw and policy were adopted under the unanimous votes of council in May of 2022. Further, okay, so now here we go again in a similar situation, finding out that our previous policy was again not sufficient to resolve an issue. Though to be honest, there was no way to predict council could ever be put in this predicament. When it comes up for a vote, I have something else that I'm going to read. I'm not going to bother reading it tonight. So that's how we got here. So the current one as it stood was voted on in May of 2022 unanimously. So the committee in general is not looking for us to be making large changes to this because it was done by legal already. Currently what we have now for the updates are done by the recommendations of an expert in this field. I'm not an expert in this field of study. I write down what other experts tell me to do in it. I don't think that anyone on council is an expert in this field of study, but that's simply just my opinion. If you do not agree with the policy, or the bylaw, quite frankly, in general, when they do come up for reading, the time for you to do that is to vote against it. If
So you don't want changes?
What changes are you suggesting outside of?
Before we jump into the changes, can I address,
Sure.
is that okay, Chair?
Yeah, go ahead.
You're the chair, sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
So I just want to remind people that Bill 45 is now, somebody in the legislature just sent me, it just went through its second reading yesterday. Bill 45, and I'd like to point out, by the way, the maximum punishment under the Code of Conduct under Bill 45 is 90 days tops and a fine. I'm already a month 7. Also, just so you know, 85% of the bills that were brought up in the last session passed within that session. This is going to pass this session, which means by the end of June, and you fellas don't have time to wait for the new government who's going to have a commission on codes of conduct and stuff like this, a commission who's designed to do this. You folks don't have time to wait until the end of June. There's an 85% chance it's going to pass by that point. I don't understand what your horses are, and I'd like to know, and I'd like the name of the expert who just made these changes in this thing, because I challenge a lot of the prepositions that you're putting into this thing.
Oh, I know, you
So-
challenged everything, by the way, from the independent third-party reviewer, which
Yes.
is where these came from, so.
And there's a reason for it. So my point is, we can wait until the 40,
Yes, we're on tape.
I know.
we can wait until, we can wait until the 45 comes out and see what happens, because there's going to be an independent commission from the government that's going to be looking after this. And in the meantime, we're here.
Okay, I'd like to address that, because I knew it was gonna come up. So just to give some people, in case people haven't read Bill 45, and I have. So Bill 45 is not intended to replace the Code of Conduct bylaws of the municipalities. That is not changing in the Municipalities Act, and it is still gonna be a requirement. If you read Bill 45, in particular, I believe it's section 42, it says that a council may, not shall, may choose to use the commission as the third party to do the review of the Code of Conduct, if something can't be settled within council. So council gets a shot at it first to try a few times, and if things aren't working, then they can go to the independent third party reviewer. And another thing that it spells out in the new act is that the bill for that would be picked up by the provincial government. So instead of us having to spend $75,000, for example, to do hire someone to review this, instead, council may choose to ask this new commission to review it, and the province picks up the bill. It does not, everything in a code of conduct policy or bylaw does not have to go to that commission. It's if council chooses to do so, and then they pick up the bill.
Can I add something, sorry?
One more thing about that. And yes, it is in second reading, but it hasn't gone to committee yet, and council will rise for the summer shortly. If you follow the white paper, the targeted timeline for this, for that commission was the end of fourth quarter of 2023. So the scheduled timeline for that to be completed, to be passed, was December 31st, or the winter session of the government. After that happens, there will still be required to be an order in council to enact the start date of it. And since it's not budgeted in the current year, the earliest that would happen would be to have an enactment of April 1st, 2024. They would be required to get the logistics set up for the back officing of it. They would have to hire staff for it and do training for it. None of that can happen until the act is passed. So that stuff will all happen, in best case, first quarter 2024. Yes.
They also,
Deputy Mayor.
most of the details of it will also come out in regulation. The regulations have not been written yet.
The regulations can't be written until after the law is
That's right.
passed. So that's all done by an order in council. This is not going to happen in the next couple months.
And also, like I said, the first and second reading, there's gonna be a lot of changes before it goes to final reading.
It's still draft. Yeah, it hasn't gone to committee yet. The change, just like we do, the bulk of changes don't happen in the session of the legislature. They happen in committee. Then it comes back from committee for amendments at the final reading.
Can I add one other thing?
Yes, please.
And in my opinion, we look at this the same as every other bylaw and regulation, and then, we don't sit around and wait for the government to change. I mean, there could be many of our policies will have to change, many of our bylaws will have to change every time the government changes the act.
Yes.
And we don't sit and wait, for them to do that. It's the same as everyone else. I mean, we just happen, by coincidence, happen to be looking at this policy and bylaw right now. There's many other municipalities who will, may have to change theirs. If we have to change ours when the time comes, then we will change it to conform with the act. So as the same as every other municipality, in New Brunswick. So they're not sitting around changing their bylaws now to go to an act that hasn't been enacted yet.
Yes.
So why would we consider sitting here?
And in fact, last year, we were told explicitly not to change anything because of the local governance reform, because they told us they were gonna rewrite all of our bylaws.
Right.
And then they didn't. Yes.
Yeah, actually, that was going to be my point, but because we did hold off on things that we could have changed because we're waiting for the outcome of this.
They told us.
But I'll cede your point to that.
Yeah,
I'll cede your point.
And that, we're kind of angry about that, because there's other stuff, not just,
Well, it's
like
stalled us.
procedural. They said, we're gonna rewrite your procedural because everyone's gonna get the same one, and then they didn't touch it. And we were mad. Because we had a lot of these changes that were the thing we just went through, that are sitting in red,
So
have
what's
been
your
sitting there for a
proposal?
while.
So what's your proposal here? You're saying that
My
you want
proposal
to
here,
do-
other than typos and general changes, is I propose that I am going to, since these changes were recommended by McGinnis, I can't remember the name, the independent third-party reviewer, okay, who is an expert in, some people don't agree, but they are an expert in governance, local governance and municipal governance. It's okay if you don't agree. If you don't agree with it, the time for you to not agree with it is when it comes up for a motion for debate. And you can, I'm sure some people will have
I'm going to make sure I
a
stand for
five-page,
Cooper on this.
Well, that's all right,
five-page.
but that's your right, we're not gonna debate it here tonight.
You have a right to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can say whatever you want, and you can say it directly to them. We'll send them the audio recording if you want. It doesn't matter to me. But I'm not an expert in it, so I'm taking the recommendations of them. And that's what's in the bylaw, the new bylaw updates, and the complaint resolution procedure policy changes. Okay?
Councillor Pack, have a comment?
Yes.
Did you have one first?
You go ahead.
With respect to Councillor Mackenzie, I really feel I'd like to make these points.
Sure.
I spend a lot of time reviewing, as you requested that we do.
Yes.
But people are very tired. To go over them now means I'm impinging on that.
So you have suggestions?
I do.
Okay.
Is it a lot of suggestions, or is it like
It's right
typos
here.
and stuff?
I can go through them.
It's not very, it doesn't look like it's very many. Can we go through them?
It's, yes.
What does council think?
I agree, we've put this off
Yeah.
twice already.
Yeah.
I would like to see it finished.
It would be good to get to go through.
Again, you're not required to be here. This is not a regular session of council, it's a committee meeting. If you want to leave, you're free to leave.
So in section 3 definitions.
Which one?
You asked us to start with the code of conduct.
Okay,
Bylaw 1620.
the bylaw, okay, yep, definitions.
Okay. So this CAO is in number 3 definitions.
Yes.
Means the CAO of the rural community of Hanwell. Are we still referring to this that way, as appointed by the Minister of Local Government and Local Government Reform in accordance with Section 81 of the Act?
Yes, we were ordered actually to put that specifically in there.
I read the Local Governance Act today,
Yeah.
and it says the CAO is appointed going forward by the council.
Going forward, but the initial one was, because this,
Well,
our
we're
current
going
CAO.
forward with this bylaw.
so,
That was my point as well.
yeah.
I think you need to add in there, going forward, this will be an appointment by
Oh,
council.
I see what you're saying, yeah, because we were told explicitly to put that in here.
Yeah.
Okay, so going forward,
If we have to have a new CAO, it's obviously gonna be appointed by council. But
Yeah,
right now,
right.
our CAO is appointed by local government.
changes to the CAO will be appointed by council.
Yes.
Okay.
So there's a CAO bylaw, you send a message to us
Yes.
about, that you will bring up for revision also.
Yeah, we never got to that one yet. I never got any feedback from it on comments, no.
Well,
I asked for comments in
Got a
email.
lot, but
It would speed things up greatly at these meetings if people would respond to me in email with them, so we can have them done ahead of time in red or blue if you'd rather in a different color. So, because this delays things a lot if we have to go through them line by line. I did ask more than once, as far as I recall, for actual changes and suggestions to this. I would appreciate getting them ahead of time, just like you are asking for things for council to be sent to you ahead of time before the council meeting. I also asked for things to be sent to me ahead of time for the committee meetings, so we can get them actually into the proposed changes to discuss when we go through it.
But not everybody may agree is the thing.
well, and I don't know certain things.
Right?
So me proposing a change to you might be inappropriate, might be incomplete, might be overkill. So doing it this way has been very helpful to me.
Okay, but I find that it would be easier to have it in
But
advance
it's
than when we
been
go through it.
since 2022 when the this is just the definition, you've had a code of conduct since 2019.
Yeah, so we've done 2 readings, so we're able to do changes. In fact, the last revision of the changes had this in red, now it's in black.
So in 4, section 4, duty of council, I just wanted to point out, based on being told when we discussed about the split between operational and governance,
Yes.
that council does not need to know certain things like job descriptions, or the other night there was a question as to why council should be talking about the surface of the area outside the building
Yeah.
with paint. It says here, councillors are expected to be well informed on all aspects of municipal governance, administration, planning, and operations.
Yes, so it's the duty of councilors to meet with administration to get information as they require it.
So we can ask anything about operations then?
Yes, that's correct. We just don't necessarily have decisions in them unless it's by council as a whole. But you can meet with the clerk at any time and ask for information.
Okay.
You're actually kind of expected to do that, so you know what's going on at all times.
But I don't think it's meant by this for us to necessarily be in the weeds as to what color we paint.
Yeah, again, this came from the lawyer, so if, we can change it if you want, but,
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Are we really and truly able to ask all these questions? Because I have and been told that there's absolutely no reason I need to know anything about operations, only governance.
no, that's not true. No, I don't told you that. You have no.
Excuse me?
You have no say in how operations happen, but you're expected to know what's happening.
Thank you.
That's the
great.
difference.
That's a very important difference.
It's an important difference.
I agree. In section number 5, G, which is at the top of page 3.
Yeah,
The rest of your bullets start with members being capitalized, and there are members as lowercase.
yeah, that probably should be as consistent, yeah, thank you.
And where you have members of council must avoid forming alliances,
Correct.
and that's in quotation marks. There should either be elaboration or removal of those quotation marks.
Let's remove them and see if it's easier.
And I would suggest removal. Good, good.
Yeah.
And 5, okay. In 6, the order of the presentation of each bullet is varied. So you start out by saying that the following shall be considered breaches of the code of conduct, colon. So using confidential information. And then B says to disclose. It should be disclosing, either directly. And
Yeah.
the same with the other
Yeah,
2 bullets, C and D. So I'll leave that to you to reword so that they
Perfect.
all are the same.
consistency, yeah, no, it's good.
And now over on 12, F, which is at the top of page 5.
Yes,
And it says council members throughout this, and it
Should be members instead of council, is that what you're
well,
saying?
you've got council shall not, at the top of the page, let's
Yes.
say E, council shall not use or attempt to use. Then in F, you've got members shall respect the role,
Yeah.
And then G, you've got members of council.
In
Yeah.
it should say members. also.
Just say members
it
throughout,
should
right?
remember, in fact, it should probably be members of council to keep it
That's
consistent,
what I
right?
would
Yeah.
suggest.
Keep it
To be
consistent.
very clear, members of what?
And again, that
Could
may
be
be-
members of staff.
And that may be because we probably had a couple of these bullet points, and then when the lawyer did it, they just added something in, but didn't change the rest of it.
Yeah, members of council rather than council or
Yeah.
members. So then you're clear, like G.
And throughout, I find the language really directive, as if we are working towards preventative behavior. And especially in G of number 12, members of council are not to use indecent, abusive, bullying towards another member, any staff of the community, or any member of public. Now, saying that, I think that was brought up last night in comments from one resident to you about speaking ill of any member of public. And so we can't expect certain things of ourselves in the same way to direct to the public, in my opinion. So there's already somewhere a place where you, as mayor and chair of meetings of council, have the ability to remove or have a disruptive member of the public leave. That's not a bylaw that directs their behavior. We have no ability to tell the staff that, the public, that they can't use indecent, abusive, bullying, harassing expressions. So it says here, this is members of council can't do that.
Right.
But I have seen that members of council perpetuate it happening with members of the public. I'm not expressing this very well. I'm searching for words to help us be less condemning of ourselves and of members of the public. It's understood that a member of council behaves with decorum at all times.
But we should have something, not going to make it our harassment policy, there should be something that allows us to get rid of disruptive people.
So that's Robert's Rules of Order. So like if somebody's up here, again, he could have called him out, a member of the public, basically being depending on how they're acting. I don't really think though he crossed the line. Everything he said was completely factual and with
But
with
without
the
dealing with one specific incident.
yeah.
You know,
In general,
yeah,
in general, if
time to
someone,
time.
if the chair believes someone crosses the line, they can be, under Robert's Rules of Order, they can be ejected from a meeting.
As long as we have some way of doing it, because we.
So-
But that's under, like I said, that's under Robert's Rules of
That's
Order.
under Robert's Rules of Order, it's not in the,
Doesn't need to be in our code of
no, it
conduct.
doesn't need to be.
It would just be so great if all of us could remember the decorum expected of
Yeah,
us.
I agree,
We
actually.
lead by example and they will follow. Sorry.
We'll disagree on that.
16, A, B, C, and D says, once posted, any material with point A, no member shall, okay, add of council.
Oh, yeah, right, sorry.
Yeah.
Again, that's just another consistency problem, I'm not really sure why that was, but it's probably because of the piecemeal that's been
Yeah,
changed by
So
a couple different.
That's why it's
It
nice
would
to
be
go over
the-
these bylaws before they're proclaimed.
it would be the same
Yeah,
throughout,
that's-
no member of
Yeah,
council.
and that's been there since last year.
Same with 17, Councilman Kennedy, add of council, A, B, and D.
Which one, sorry, A, B, and D?
It says in A,
Oh,
17
yeah,
members
yeah.
are expected,
Yeah,
and
and B, oh, sorry,
D, A, B, and D.
where in? B?
Second
So the
line.
second sentence of
Ah,
B,
yeah, yes, okay, thank you.
and the second sentence of D as well. And then in 18, it would be the same,
Yeah,
of
sorry.
council, and that's
Very-
all, thank you for
I'm
listening.
very slow, so it's, I got 17, A, B, D, and what was the last one?
It's
Sorry?
number 18,
18.
add
Ah,
of council.
yeah.
the members again.
Oh,
Yeah.
council.
That's good to get that cleaned up.
Yeah, no, it's great. How do we not see that the first time? I guess we weren't just paying attention to it.
Your mind tends to skip over words.
Yeah, but we should pay attention to words.
Well, we know we attention, but I mean, that's just how you define certain things.
Okay, is there any other comments other than people that were disagreeing with it?
No.
Okay.
That's Peck got mine.
Then, for Councillor Peck, do you have any comments on?
I do, but I don't want to be talking the show here. What
Yeah,
if I-
No, you're doing a good job.
Darren,
No, no.
although Darren,
Yeah.
the one thing that I would note on Schedule A on the last one, you just have clerk.
Oh, yeah.
Jerry's name should be really added to that, right?
What is this?
On the last page.
Schedule
Schedule
A.
A.
Is that something, though, that maybe should be added when it's being signed as opposed to, because I guess, because
You're
I'm,
gonna be with
I may
us
not always be the
tonight.
clerk.
Yeah, so
So is that something that I would add? Or do you want to put it in and just leave it in?
I think it should just be left like this, it doesn't, the idea, I think, was probably for the clerk to sign it, right? Because
Right.
who knows
right,
what it's gonna
but
be.
usually, yeah, when she would sign it, her name's gonna have to be there when she does, like, do you know what I mean, on a formal document?
Yes, it would be typed, it would be
Yes,
printed and.
exactly, that's what I mean.
Yeah, we should probably have 2 lines.
Yeah, that's all I mean.
Okay.
Well, we're doing good.
Yeah.
If we can get through this tonight, it's much better than come back to another night.
Well,
And
the policy's about the same length as the bylaw, okay. Councillor Pat. No, you're doing a good job of proofreads.
There is no definition section or terms of reference with this. I'll leave that to you to think about, because I checked and other policies have definition and terms of reference section. Then we could move on to procedure number 1. It's the same, where there's bulleted items A, B, C, and D. You have advising the individual for the first one, and then you have make a request for B, and the clerk may offer for C, and in the event of for D, it should all be reworded so that it fits well after a colon. Do you see what I'm meaning?
Yep.
Yep.
So I will leave that to you.
So
But
wait a
it's-
second. So for the consistency,
The words are fine, they just need to be rephrased. So if you're gonna say, I'm looking at any person who has identified or witnessed conduct. See that paragraph at the bottom of page 1?
yes,
Okay. At the end of that section, it says, may address the prohibited conduct by.
Advising, yeah.
Okay, so in A, it begins with advising.
Yeah.
In B, it says, make a
Oh, I see what
request.
you're saying, it's
Okay.
irrespective of the colon, yeah, okay,
Yes,
yes.
so just reword, you can do
And-
that
Or
beautifully.
just make it making a request
Yeah.
or whatever.
And it's not the clerk, it's the CAO.
Yeah, it's CAO, yeah.
It's not the clerk.
Okay?
But C and D will also have to be adjusted.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, now we're into the, so that's the informal complaint process. I wrote here, individuals are encouraged to pursue the informal complaint procedure, but is it a process or a procedure? Because you've got the title being informal complaint process,
Yeah,
but you then refer to it as a procedure. So in the first line, under 1, it says individuals are encouraged to pursue the informal complaint procedure.
process.
And there are a couple of other places where that says that. I didn't note them down. I can do that and get back to you about it. However, when I get to the end of D, I'm thinking, wow, that's the informal process. But it doesn't tell me actually how to do it anywhere. There's really no step-by-step, so it would be making a request to the clerk, and then the clerk offers to facilitate, but the resolution, in the event the clerk is involved, or CAO
Mhm.
is involved, it would go to the mayor, but then, like, what is the mayor gonna do? There's nothing there to talk about that.
No, I think it's the idea that it's intentionally left a bit vague because it would be up to the person that's doing the investigation. It's an informal investigation.
Okay.
It's not a formal investigation.
So just a sentence to say what you just said would be really great, right in there.
Yeah.
Because then I'm not left wondering, okay, I guess the mayor's involved if this involves the CAO. But what's the mayor gonna do? And it's gonna be the mayor's
Fair enough, yeah.
Well, the mayor would
choice.
do the investigation and.
Yeah,
very-
but it
similar
doesn't
ways.
really say it there, so.
I mean, yeah, I agree.
Because you're quite specific about the formal process. Right there, you have a red sentence. It says, if an informal investigation by council has concluded, but nowhere have you said council is involved, other than the mayor.
Okay, yeah.
So
If the
is
informal
council
investigation has concluded, yeah.
And the sanctions are warranted and so on. So just, council wasn't involved, so you take that out,
Right.
okay?
Well,
It can be involved though. I think we should probably add something to say that.
well, what it is even with an informal complaint, the mayor or the CAO is required to do the investigation, then brings their, and then once they determine as to whether it really is a valid complaint or not, then they bring it to council. Council makes all the decisions as to whether it was.
Yeah, but
That's
the final
defined later
decision.
on in the sanctions, right?
But what she's
But it
saying is
doesn't
it's
say
not,
anything here.
yeah, it's not an investigation by council, I guess, it's an
No.
investigation by the CAO or
That's the
the.
thing, it doesn't have to be, but sanctions have to be by
Oh, yeah,
council.
for sure.
Anyway,
But,
So,
but it says an informal investigation by council has concluded.
Yeah.
It would be an informal investigation by the CAO or the
Yeah,
mayor,
it should be
right?
by the
well, that's
CAO,
what
but-
she said, just take it out by council.
Yeah, okay, okay, I got you.
And if sanctions are warranted, sanctions may be applied.
By council.
Okay, by
Yeah,
council.
by
Yeah,
council.
oh, yeah.
Only council can apply.
Only council
can
sanctions.
apply
The mayor or the
So
CAO
just
can't
put
do
that in there and
Yeah.
it'll be
That's a
covered.
good idea.
A formal complaint is not required prior to sanction being applied would be just fine.
Yes.
Left as is.
But by council, the prior sentence, yeah.
Is that informal process confidential?
Yes.
Yes, and that should be a,
Doesn't say that
it should
anywhere.
be, yes.
I don't know where you'd
All
like to put it.
investigations need to be confidential.
Okay, but it isn't clear, so can you add?
That probably should be
somewhere?
defined somewhere prior to that. Probably the policy objective.
Or policy statement.
Or the policy statement,
Yeah.
consistent with, yeah, all added in the policy statement, yeah.
Okay. The next thing I notice, for those of you just keen to go forward, is 2B, Section 4, which is at the top of page 3.
To be yeah.
for a second.
Okay, yes?
So you've read it, you know what it says.
Yeah.
I have a suggestion here. What about replying with a request for more information or additional info? Okay, so please take this respectfully. When you made the formal complaint, you received a reply from the CAO asking for more information.
Correct.
That's nowhere in here. It says, if it is determined that a complaint shall not be investigated, the clerk will advise the complainant. If the complainant disagrees, so maybe it's just a bit before, if the clerk wants to go ahead,
It should be CIO too, not clerk.
yeah, so if the CAO wants to go ahead, is it, how do we word it that she can ask the complainant for more information? Because if you or anyone, in your complaint through Schedule A or
Yeah,
whatever it is, was not thorough sufficiently to have it deemed something viable as a complaint, that ends it. But in yours,
Right?
she indicated that was the case, but she asked you
There wasn't enough information,
supply
basically,
the
yeah.
information. You got a second chance to.
Well, not really.
No, not
That would
really,
be
yeah.
part of the investigation is to investigate it. At that point, if you don't feel that you have enough information,
Okay,
but that's part of
so
your
somewhere
investigation.
in here, could it be worded that the CAO will dialogue with the complainant to get as much information as he or she?
I think that's
It's kind of assumed.
It's kind of a given, and if
That's-
you're doing an investigation and you investigate, you.
Well, I don't know.
Well,
Well,
If you submit something many times.
that's just, like, for example, bear with me, I put in the very first code of conduct complaint. I put in a formal complaint in 2018, right after we did this. I sent my letter, I met with the clerk, I mean, we discussed everything. I asked
Be careful
questions.
too, it's being recorded, just be careful what you say, so
Yeah.
don't violate anyone's privacy.
No, I have no intention to. And, but I mean, I was, you know, it was an investigation. There were
Yes.
questions back and forth. I discussed it with the clerk and, you know, before it was determined whether it was a valid investigation or not.
Okay, because I don't find that clear here, the process, to indicate that that would happen.
I think that's probably intentional. It's designed, investigations can have to proceed, there has to be some assumptions made that an investigation.
Yeah, an investigation is an investigation.
It's an investigation.
It's not just you receive a letter and make a decision, it's you investigate it. You talk to all the parties. I'm assuming that in this case, they talked to the other party involved in the one that I put in.
Yes.
In fact, I know they did. They actually came and asked whether we would consider having a meeting and resolving it amongst ourselves with them, and we declined.
And
Um,
and you have to be careful too about being too specific about definitions
Yeah.
for something, then you're potentially limiting yourself to how an investigation can
Yeah.
proceed, and you really shouldn't do that.
No, I mean, an investigation is an investigation. It's not just reading a letter and making a decision.
Okay, I'm concerned that the general public or any one layperson wouldn't understand any of it. And the more we can give them with respect to process, the better. I'll just move on to 3, we're losing our audience.
Yeah.
Yep.
Take your time, you need to get it done, get it done, yeah.
These sanctions, okay, so again, we've got a colon where it says, but not limited to the following.
Yeah.
And they're all over the map, from I to XVI, what is that, 16?
16, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know, Darren, how you would reword them to make them
I
have
don't
a
know.
consistency.
Again, I didn't write this part, so
Yeah.
I don't know, I guess it's a matter of try to reformat the consistency, but.
So I'll just leave it with you.
I've looked at numerous ones and basically they're, I think the focus has always been in any code of conduct policy I've seen or bylaw. The point is to get the point to be clear as to what you want your sanctions to be.
Yes.
It's not to be grammatically perfect.
Yeah,
Well, I have a great deal of trouble.
I know you, I know,
I know
some,
you do.
and some people do and some people don't.
yeah,
I really do.
So can I just,
Some of us don't speak the good or English.
Well, we should try our very best because we are leaders and we lead by example.
Yes,
Yeah.
At
and also
all
let's be clear.
times.
Councilor Heisel.
so, sorry, I had to step out for a minute.
Fine.
It's getting very late. So the formal complaint process, going back,
Yeah.
number 2, A, B. Let's see, where were we? Number 5. Did you capitalize that? It's small
Oh,
here.
no.
And under 5A again, if,
Yeah.
it's not capitalized, both of those? Sorry.
No, that's a good catch.
I didn't write that part either, but I'll fix it.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
It's probably me. You're both getting my minutes.
Yeah, I know it's a
I'm
marathon
right
session,
down
we're
to
almost
the
done, like I
very
can see the
end.
light at the end of the
Yeah,
tunnel.
well.
It's only 2 pages left.
We'll
Yeah,
be late tomorrow.
yeah,
That's okay.
3B,
yeah.
that's just awful. A sentence runs on, it's terrible. C, I don't understand at all. 3C. In deciding which consequences to impose, council shall consider the potential consequences listed above, but shall not be limited to those consequences. Like goodness, just take that out of there. Council will do what council wants to do.
Where are we?
It's in
3C.
3C.
Page 5.
Hey, this one, the page number's
Page
on.
5,
Page 5?
yeah.
At the top, right, instead of put the wrong.
Yeah.
All this is in this, where,
So it's see here in the middle of the page, and you sign it.
and deciding which consequences to impose? Is that line that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
In D, did we do this with Pat and with previous? D, once this has been determined, council shall call in the complainant and respondent to inform them of decisions.
I believe that it was, yeah.
What, in E, what closed session meeting?
December 6th.
Okay, so I wasn't around then. F, the breach shall be validated in open session of council.
Also happened 2022?
So it's verbalized, or it is read, or
It's
it is...
read like every other motion, no?
Yeah.
And 4, section 4 is on the next page. This is the last one from me. Councilor, I still have to get ready.
No, I'm good. I'm leaving.
This is good though, by the way. You've picked up on a lot of stuff that have been here, quite frankly, some of this has been here since it was
since
spawned off.
a long time.
Okay, so I'll read it. Because I put question mark, human resource policy. This is what it says. Sanctions and consequences. I don't know what the bracket for staff means there, but should a breach have been deemed to have occurred, consequences for said breach will be actioned by the clerk following the rural community of Hanwell human resources policy when approved.
This basically means that if a member of staff does violates the code of conduct, that the CAO, since they report to the CAO, then it will follow under whatever is decided under the human resources policy when we have
Which
one.
we don't have.
That's why it says
So when approved?
Yeah.
There is one done, it's
It's
just,
not approved
Hasn't been
yet.
approved yet.
Okay.
But I honestly, I do have a real problem with this because this has been sitting here for a while now. This HR policy when approved.
Yeah.
It's been well over a year.
Last May, you false promised it was going to be done next.
So we approved it based on,
More policing on councilors.
they said, you know, we would have this done, or we said we would try to get it done within the next 6 months. Well, it's been too long.
Well,
So
2022, we had to freeze everything.
But
So now we're back in the game, and we had to prioritize, and that fell to the bottom of the list.
yes, but still, we don't have it.
No, there's a lot of things
So
we
it
don't
should
have.
be removed as far as I'm concerned. Or
Then we have to go
something.
through 3 more readings of this just to add section 4 again.
Wow,
I don't think we should do that. I think
sorry,
we're better off
Darren,
keeping
but
it
we don't have a human resources policy.
But it says when approved.
when approved.
Yes, but it's been a long
We
time.
best approve it.
It's
Yeah,
been
we
a
best,
long time.
we'll get to it, yeah, we're working on it. If we, it
Is it?
didn't take 3 weeks to get through one bylaw or one policy, then we'd be able to do things fast.
Well, again, I apologize for not sending it to you, but you see what I'm meaning when I say I don't understand certain things?
Yeah, no, that's a
So I
valid point.
send it to you and it's kind of a waste of your time.
That's valid, no, that's a valid statement, I understand
You
completely.
also could, if you have, if someone, I'm not just saying you, if anyone does have additions like this or things, they could actually, tell you about them, ask to come to one of your committee meetings. And you could just, then they could, rather than just sending a letter, you could discuss it at your committee meeting.
Yeah, remember too, all committees, regardless of who sits on them, are always open to all members of council. Any member of council can go to any, you might not know that because you're new, any member of council can go to any committee meeting, just like any member of the public technically can. And the only difference would be that if they sat on the committee for that meeting, they would be a voting member. And the mayor is de facto on every committee by default anyway, so
Look at
it's
that,
his choice whether it
turned
goes
all
or not.
upside down. Done.
Okay, Darren, so go
Yes.
back to number 3, B,
3B.
B, yes,
B, and.
on the bronze sentence, yeah.
And C, D, E, F. So you referred to the breach, right?
Wait a minute.
Capital
You
B.
say 3B?
3F?
3, F, sorry, well, yeah, 3F, sorry.
3F, okay,
You refer to the breach,
yes.
and you have capital B.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that shouldn't be bad.
And under H, you do it again.
It has done again.
Council has found a member to be in breach.
Great.
Right?
Yes, yeah. First bullet.
Oh, yeah, first one,
bullet.
yeah. Okay,
Okay,
I think right underneath it's lowercase.
right, because
Yeah.
all the other ones are lowercase that I noticed, but those two were capitalized.
And everywhere it says clerk, by the way, needs to be replaced with
Just
CAO.
CAO, yeah.
We didn't have a CAO at times. Okay,
I just have one question about this, it's not in, why do we need part two? Name a scenario that, part one, so the informal process, you could just go right to the charges, why would you need part two?
why would you do an informal and not a formal?
Yeah, I mean, what's the purpose of two if you could do it with one? Why go through all that bureaucracy?
Okay,
When one does it?
I'll give you a perfect example of why. Let's say, for example, at a council meeting, okay? A councillor is acting out, point of order, they keep breaking order. Chair calls a couple times, says, you're out of order, you gotta stop it or we're gonna action on it. Person doesn't stop. It's now a code of conduct being issued right now.
Sure.
Get out. And there's escalating levels of sanctions. Some of them being removed from the meeting is one of the first things in sanctions.
Okay.
If you had to do a formal complaint in writing to do that and have it submitted and reviewed, you can't have that done in a meeting.
Okay.
So it has to be actionable immediately.
So
And by the way, that is what the independent third-party reviewer meant by absurd, and I agree. It would be absurd to have to do a formal complaint for something you need to action immediately.
For serious items.
Well, it could escalate. It starts as someone not listening, and chair's trying to say you're out of order, and they're not doing, and then you look on YouTube, there's tons of council meetings where they just go completely out of
And
control.
council agrees with this definition?
Yes.
For what?
That you can be able to do at least a minor issuing of sanctions immediately. Example, kicking someone out of committee, out of a meeting that is being disrespectful and not listening to order.
In fairness though, guys, the post gave you 6 months no pay for an informal, so how's that minor?
Because it was escalating, quite frankly. It wasn't one specific situation, it was far more than that.
It was November 18th to December 6th.
There's 19 breaches of code of conduct.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
specific
we're not-
problem,
that's-
we're not
Sounds
reviewing
good.
that.
You folks gave the definition, that's all I asked.
The
Thank you very much.
definition-
I'm good.
The reason is, yeah, you have to be able to sometimes act on it immediately. And that's why you can't do a formal, have to go to a formal.
Thank you.
And at some time, you'd like to hope that it's not going to become a serious incident, and you hope to be able to resolve it
Informal.
Yeah, without it having to get
without
worse.
it having to get worse.
Yeah,
Appreciate it, thank you guys.
thank you. And that concludes our marathon session for tonight.
Well, that's good, guys. I mean, we put a lot of time into here. You know,
I
Say
will,
end of the meeting.
I will try to get, what?
is the, do we need I guess I don't need a motion.
No, I don't
to
know.
that.
It's a roundtable committee, we're done.
We're done.
We're done.
I think